Happy Monday, guys. Happy Monday out there in the world, wherever you are. If you're in if you're in your car right now or your truck, if you're in a van and you got them headphones on, you got a couple of kids in the back that don't even need to be listening to your wild step cousin Theo right here, because he might throw sometimes my brain throws an expletive and it uses my face to toss it into the universe. And so, yeah, but wherever you are, if you're sitting at home snuggled up with a loved one, dude, that sounds beautiful. There's nothing I wish more than that there's two beautiful, or not even beautiful in their own minds, and it doesn't even matter who thinks they're beautiful. I just hope that there's two thick gay men out there just snuggled up somewhere listening to this bad chatter out into the universe, because that's something about that makes me... It doesn't make me feel homoerotic, but it just makes me feel like, you know what? Them big dogs is out there, staying natural and having a good time. And, and we're not, they're not listening to a guy because, he's maybe different than them. And I think about that. But wherever you are, if you're listening to this today, I appreciate you being here with me. Happy Monday. January 15, the year 2017 in time, as far as we know. And dude, I have the game on right now, and I paused it. I have the Saints versus the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm home alone. It got to the point I was like, I got to do this podcast because I got to drive to Brea and do a show. I got to leave in about an hour and 15 minutes or something. So I'm like, I can't watch anymore right now. And I was so amped up. I'm like, what's going to happen? Because the Vikings made a field goal, and then the Saints made a field goal. And so then the Saints were in the lead, but the Vikings were getting the ball back 25 seconds, not a lot of time. But I was like, I just got to pause it. Because I didn't want, if I watched and the Saints lost, I would be really upset or bummed out. So I didn't want to have that natural bum, that free bum, bouncing all, inside of my walls. So here I am, and it's paused. I can see in the background, it's just like a picture of the sidelines on the TV screen, and it's paused. So I'm going to have to get into that later on. Thank you guys for joining us. I want to thank everybody that came out in Brea this weekend, and I want to apologize for anybody that came to the Saturday Night Late Show. Things just got out of hand, like not with me, really just in the audience. There was a lot of people being loud. Some people was upped up. Some people was snickered up on that dust, and it just, I think it ruined some of the show. And the staff, and I love the staff that works there, but they didn't do a good job of holding it down. There was no real mediation of the room, and I just want to apologize to anybody that came out to that Saturday Late Show. And if I'm heading back there in the future, and you want to come see a show, hit me up and I'll see if I can help out with some tickets, because I feel bad about that. Because you guys didn't get the best show, because there was just these, some people were chirping and, I don't know what they were doing, taking each other's pulses or just being just wild. But anyhow, I appreciate if you did come out, and I had a nice weekend in Brea, man. A lot of cool people came out, so I was grateful to everybody that came through. What's going on, man? I got this coffee. My buddy sent me this coffee for Christmas, and this isn't an ad. My buddy sent me this coffee for Christmas. It says on there, I just opened it. It says, it's called Cups Coffee, and it says Guatemalan. Single use or something, or 1 year old. And I'm like, damn, this shit sounds, I just want coffee. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to know, I don't need its birth certificate. I want fucking coffee. I want to not have to go buy cocaine. So I want to just use something natural. I want coffee. And this shit got me making me feel like I'm involved in sex trafficking or something. This shit says Guatemalan, 72 months or something on it. And I'm like, what the hell, man? So now I'm drinking coffee and I'm a little bit nervous, and I just don't want to get caught up in some kind of, who knows? In the future, maybe they'll bust a man, he used to drink coffee that was only 3 years old. No man should be drinking coffee that hasn't been aged, where the beans haven't been aged at least 18 years. And who knows what's next? They taking men out of the universe. They're trying to take us out of the universe sometimes. And I know it's not an intention. I think a lot of this, there's a strong female movement out there. It's like the whole world. It's like Mother Nature herself is about to just, drop an egg, like she's just on that station and she's about to just drop an egg, and I don't even know where that egg would just pop out of the earth, I guess, just come rolling out of a dam, maybe out of the San Andreas Fault. That egg might end up out there in South Riverside or out towards Anaheim. Who knows? But I feel like Mother Nature's she's on that, she's on them tumbles. She's got them belly tumbles, and she wants pickles and chocolate because she's having, she's going through some things. And sometimes it has to happen for things to even out. But damn, they taking everybody's getting called out for being wild and for being too much. Aziz Ansari just got, there was a thing on the internet today. And, the thing is, when first time I read something now, the first thing I think is this true? Who's citing these sources? Are there any real sources? The website or the thing was called babe.net or something was the company that was saying this. I never heard of them. I never heard of them in my life. So, but the allegations that were out there were just that he was on a date with a girl. He invited her over. He was trying to be nasty and be naughty with her. Or he's trying to be, it seemed like he was being aggressive from this girl's take. And I'm not discounting what she said. I have no clue. There hasn't been there's no trial or anything here. It doesn't seem like. So that's the strange thing. Like, I don't know. Is he being accused of a crime? If that's the case, do you take it to authorities? Or are you just making it aware and using his name? So I guess some of the movement, the Me Too, if it's part of the Me Too movement, is a bit, or Time's Up. I think they changed it now to Time's Up. Is a little confusing to me in that regard because I don't know what's, I guess, is it just awareness? You're using somebody's name. Do they get to say what they thought happened that evening? And I guess he will if he wants to rebuttal it. But it's also, people's perspectives of what's going on when something's going can be different. They can be different. And we didn't all come from the same history or the same experiences. Like, what if a man has only had one girlfriend and she's real rowdy? And she likes the man to fucking, put jingle bells in her ears and, beat her on the back with a fucking, semi-hard billy club, or, put egg yolks on her legs and dip them in damn, planko, toast chips and fuck or something like that. Who knows? And then you show up at a girl's, then you show up on a date and you got a sack of straight up, toast crumbs and a deep fryer and a couple of jingle bells, a couple of JBs, and you're ready to rock out. It's like, it's just people's perspectives going into, their history has so much to do with it. So, but it's wild. Here this guy wakes up and maybe he does this kind of stuff all the time, and maybe he's, a nasty cat, and maybe this is something that, that needs to come out to help him get better. And maybe that's the way it's being done now, is just on a public scale. I'm like the future of men. What do you maybe in the future it's you sign an agreement. These are the things I like. These are the things I don't. We're becoming so, you chime into an app. I'm into these 6 or 7 different ideas, and someone has to agree to them. And it's wild. It's a different, there's just a lot going on. There's a lot going on, a lot of factors going on. But I don't know who won the game yet. I do not know who won the game. I do not know who won the game. We got some good calls that came in, man, and I'm not jumping to those just yet, but we have an interview. I have to do a call out to a lovely young lady here in just a second who's going to be on the hotline, because we brought up, well, first I got to call in. Oh, I'm all over the episode, man. This Guatemalan 6-year-old has got me chirping out here, man. We had a call over the weekend that came in about Hawaii, and this was from Josh in Hawaii. Here we go.
Yo, Theo. This is Josh calling in from the island of Hawaii. And yeah, I'm just calling you after a little post-nuclear apocalyptic scare that we had this morning, I woke up to an Amber Alert saying there was an inbound ballistic missile headed to the island of Hawaii.
Rise and shine, boy. Onward.
And I basically woke up into a scarier reality than the nightmare I was having. And there was about 30 minutes where, yeah, that was a real reality, man.
Wow.
I was just constantly updating my Twitter, trying to figure out what the fuck's going on. Nobody's saying this is a false alarm. And I'm walking around outside, just looking at my neighbors, trying to figure out if we're about to be bombed by Kim Song-Jun, whatever that dude's name is over there. Anyways.
Kim Jong-il, baby. And I'm going to say this, you might want to get that man's name under your tongue, you know? Just because if he shows up, that's probably the first question he's going to ask us when he takes over. What's my name? What's my motherfucking name? And if you do, most people are not going to know it. Song Young Lamb, boy, you're out. They're going to chop you down right there. Chip Choppity Chop. Somebody's going to say that, dude. Somebody's going to say your name is Chip Chop Lamb. Young Lamb. Somebody's going to General So. People are going to have the worst ideas, and they're going to take you out. So I think his name's Kim Jong-un or Kim Jong-il. The problem is they keep killing these Kim Jongs. You know, little Kim Jong grows up, kills big Kim Jong so he can be the BKJ. And then a little Kim Jong grows up and kills another BKJ, and it just keeps going. Kim Jong-il, uno, dos, tres. That'd be cool, dude, if it was Kim Jong-ocho. That'd be dope. And he came out with a little bit of a Latino flair, you know? Kind of like he, like he just showed up on Monday Night Raw one night and was like, Kim Jong-ocho. But I can't imagine that, dude. Imagine now that moment where you're telling me for 30 minutes you thought this was a reality, that they're ballistic middle. First of all, I'd have to Google ballistic. So that I'm gonna start right there. Like, are these fun? Like, what kind of missiles are these? Like, who's? Like, do I just not have to be within 20 feet of where it lands? Like, what am I up against? But can you imagine that for 30 minutes? You know, I mean, I wonder how many Me Too occurrences happen just during that 30 minutes. Because if I'm somewhere and they say you got 30 minutes left, the countdown is here, dude. I'll tell you this. I'm gonna throw down about 300 milligrams of Cialis and finally start talking to the women I've been afraid to talk to most of my life. That's exactly what I'm gonna do. You know, I might have to take a dude down with long hair if he uses good conditioner and I never see his face and I walk up to him from behind and just say, hey, you know, ma'am, are you into wild stuff? And do it like I would never want to see the front of him. But yeah, dude, I mean, that's 30-minute countdown. I'd love to know what you did in that time. Well, here's the thing. You had to be, the first thing you probably did was look more. Is this real? But if nobody knows if it's real, and I think Hawaii didn't even make the announcement until later in the day to say it was an accident. Or I'm guessing it took 30 minutes. You just said that. Man, 30 minutes? Right now, somebody says you got 30 minutes. What would you do? I'd probably drive over to somebody that I love. Honestly, it would be a girl, and I would probably try to have sex. I'd talk to my family. You know what? I would have my family on speakerphone, talking to them, and then quietly trying to have sex with a girl who also wanted to have sex with me. So I'd be trying to fuck quietly so that my family didn't know that was going on. You know, and so me and the girl could both enjoy each other's company, but at the same time trying to get my I love yous in, you know? She's like, did you just come on my back? I'm like, no, that's tears. Those are tears. I'm talking to my family. This is a really sad 20 minutes right there. This is a really sad time we're going through because the world is ending. Sorry, that's a little vulgar, man. I don't usually get that vulgar, but I think it's this coffee, man. And it's the game. It's the excitement. And also, I think, man, you know, like, and I appreciate that call, Josh. And if there are things going on in the world and you are a live reporter on the scene of something, it could be anything. It could be a drug deal. It could be a, post-coitus with you and your mate. It could be, you just shot an animal, your buddy just shot it. If there's something going on that, or if there's an earthquake, or there's the Hawaiian missile practice, whatever's going on, and you're a live reporter on the scene, hit that hotline, drop us that information, and we can play it, because that was nice to have Josh call in and let us know what's happening out there in Hawaii. We had a great call that came in on last week's episode, and this was it right here. I'm gonna play it, and then we're gonna call a lovely young lady who's gonna be able to fill us in on some information. Here we go. Let's hear it.
Hey Theo, this is JP from down in Alabama, and I was calling you about dead porn stars, man. Had two of the greats pass away in late 2017. Well, now they've left behind all this material, and I feel like a lot of people that are, scrolling through these porn sites and stuff, they may not know these girls are dead. What are your thoughts on people jerking it to dead porn stars?
Man, and and some people would listen to this question like, "Oh, that's stupid. Who cares? That's stupid. It's about pornography." And I know this show, this episode, we've had a little bit of smut chatter. We've been talking about things that are a bit smuttish. And this show isn't devolving into something smuttish, but this was a good question. This is a good question. And I don't really think that I'm going to give you my 2 cents in a minute. But first I'm going to call, I've got a lovely young lady here. Her name is Zoe Monroe. You can check her out. She's a pornographic star, pornographic actress. And she's in, and it's tempting here because she is she's out there dancing, in the dark arts, and she's a real professional, and she is, she's good at what she does. I've fell victim to it many times, on my home computer, and I'm going to give her a call right now, and see what she thinks about this very topic.
Hello.
Zoe Monroe.
What's up?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Taking bong rips on a hammock.
Oh, you're taking bong rips on a hammock, huh?
Yep.
You ever try to do a bunch of cocaine and just stay in a hammock?
I don't think I have.
Well, it's hard to do. I think it's probably easier to stay in a hammock on pot.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, because cocaine will make you want to get out of a hammock. At one point I felt like I was just trapped in somebody's net. But we had a great call that came in on our podcast this week, and I'm a fan of your work. I'm a fan of you personally. I think you're a real sweetheart.
Oh, thank you, Theo.
Yeah, you. Anytime I've been around, you always make me laugh. I know you're a big pet owner. You got a big heart, and you have a nice body and everything that I've seen on the internet. And so,
hey.
Yeah. I was just saying on the podcast that I've definitely fallen victim to some of your work over the years. So
that's what I like to hear.
Yeah. Thank you very much. But we had a caller that called in, and he said his question was, last year you guys lost some popular pornographic actors and actresses, I think, but in your industry.
Mm-hmm.
Is it okay? Or what are your thoughts on people masturbating and not knowing if these actors and actresses are dead?
Well, we do what we do to be fantasies. And like comedians do what they do, you want to make people laugh and you want to have fun. Well, we want to fulfill everybody's fantasies while fulfilling our fantasies and having a lot of sex and fun while we do it. So why not have these stars live on through our fantasies? As long as you're paying for it.
Right. Okay, so that's the biggest thing. As long as you're paying for it. Do you think there should be
because, all the tube sites are ruining the business. And if people still want the amount of porno that we all make for y'all to keep coming out, some people got to be buying it because who's going to pay us?
Right, that's a good point. So are there sites you recommend if people want to actually support the business that they go to?
Yes, I recommend Elegant Angel. They just released 2 squirting showcases of mine, so naturally I'm going to say them first.
Oh, wow.
Evil
Huh?
Angel's a good one. There's a lot of different angel ones we got.
A little bit of crotch archery, huh?
Yeah.
Now, but now, do you think there should be a special section on these sites where, it should say that these are deceased, if this is where you want to come to see deceased pornographic actresses?
Well, I mean, if you're going to Google one of your favorite stars, some of the pages that will come up first, like your free ones and things like that, will have, I don't know what's the most politically correct way to say this, but like year of death, perhaps, or, something like that.
Okay, and so do you think, now what about, I thought maybe it would be interesting if they had like an in memoriam at the end of a porn, say you're watching some porn, at the end, there's like, do you think that would turn people off? Like you're, spraying out, next thing you know, it's like, Judy, was, left the earth in 2015. I wonder if that would that could kill some people's buzz.
I can see how that would, interfere with your little after-cum euphoria there.
Yeah.
So, I don't really know what the best way to have people find out if your favorite porn star has passed away or not.
But
that's a good question. I don't know if that's a good idea or not to have that.
Do you, if you pass away, and I hope you never do, I want to tell you that.
Oh, thank you, Theo.
Yeah. I mean, I just hope the world just gets to see your skin and your, breasts and, anus and legs and everything for decades to come. And,
oh yeah, me too.
Okay, yeah, good. And but if you ever do you want men to still be jerking off to your material?
I mean, that is why I do it.
Yeah. Do you think there should be a clause maybe that people who work in porn put into their like with a driver's license, you have to get a thing that says like, yeah, I'm willing to donate my organs if I die,
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they should have something like that for you guys, maybe where it's like, oh, well, yeah, if I die, I'm okay with people still.
I mean, the purpose of that would really only be for the fans, because the companies honestly don't give a shit. If they're still making money on it, they're still going to make money on it.
Right.
Either way.
Wow. So, final say, what would you say to this guy then? We had a guy who called in. He said, is it okay to be jerking off to dead people if I don't... Is it okay to be jerking off to dead porn stars?
I think yes, because they made all of that content for you to jerk off to.
Yeah.
I don't see why them being here or not being here would have anything to do with it. But I can see how that is a very good question.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly made me think. Well, I appreciate you taking some time to talk to us. You guys can follow Zoe Monroe on her Instagram at Miss MS Zoe Monroe, MONROE. But beware, if you go to her Instagram, dude, you're probably going to end up taking a 15-minute break from work. So one leads to the other, so I try to stay off your Instagram sometimes because... I just can't really control myself, so I just have issues when it comes to self-control.
Hey, we all do.
yeah, it's true. I guess we all do. Well, I appreciate you discussing.
Boner City.
I appreciate you discussing this with us, and thanks, Zoe. And you'll have to come on the podcast sometime. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks for having me today.
You bet. Have a good evening. Good luck with the hammock and the bong.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
Talk to you later.
All right, bye. So there you go. She says, that's what the material's made for. It's made to be out there. It's made for people to, get that jerk up and get that seed up. Now, I feel like there should be a thing at the end. It's like, would that be a turnoff, though? You're squeezing and pleasing yourself, and just treating your wiener like a damn fucking near empty tube of toothpaste, and you're trying to get that last pop. Because that's the thing. When I'm masturbating, it's like, at this point, when I was young, it would just be like, just get that thing to fire and just watch that thing fire. Part of me, and I always have thought I'd be good at archery, because part of me, the best thing about masturbation was that pop. Not even the feeling I would get, but just the joy of seeing that distance, seeing that hit, seeing that trebuchet. You know, how far that boulder is going to go. Is it going to, you know, what, you know, just seeing what kind of, you know, you're like, dang, that's going on inside of my body. I got that electricity coming out of my body. You know, I got that, you know, that's Satan's neutrons, and they're flying out of your freaking body and out of your nuts. And that was exciting to me. But then I do notice that as I get over time, I just want to get as much joy as I can before I, you know, end up, you know, spraying out. I try to get as much like buildup of sheer joy before I end up, you know, catching that pop. So it's kind of evolved a little bit as to what masturbation is for me. But I'll say this though, I think that you should, now as viewers, maybe we watch and do a little bit of, you know, maybe you do something before. You light a candle. You know, I got a candle lit right here, even just for this conversation, because I knew we was definitely going to be delving into the darks, into the dark arts. And so you light that candle, you know, or maybe you do put some oranges out like they do in India. Sometimes they have a little picture of, you know, Ganesh, the elephant, and a couple of oranges or little potpourris or something. You know, you light up a couple of candles or throw some sage around the room if you know whoever you're going to masturbate to is deceased. You know, maybe you take it on that yourself as a person to have a little bit of, because I think I personally do think it's a little bit wild to be cracking on, you know, some deceased footage of somebody. It's a good question, because here I am changing my mind mid-sentence. It's a good question, but I feel like for me, I would feel better, and I try to stay away from pornography. But for me, I would feel better if I didn't do it, if I did not do that. If I did not watch it at all. But I would then feel better if there was a in memoriam at the end. You know, you're stacking skeet inside of your body and stacking and stacking and stacking and stacking, and you're watching, and then, you know, at the end it says, you know, Molly Tit Butt or whatever her name was, you know, whatever the girl's name was, Molly butt, you know, tits and butt ass or whatever, you know, something sexier than that, obviously. Lopez, make her fancy, you know. She was, you know, alive from, you know, 2000 to 2019. And you'd be like, whoa. I think it would make it more real. I think things like that would make it more real. And maybe you throw in a couple of other stats. You know, she liked the Fast and the Furious series, and she had a couple of bad tattoos that she was saving up money to get removed, or something like that. Something that makes her a little bit more personal. That could be interesting. But then, like Zoe said, a lot of that is fantasy. A lot of that is, you know, you want the fantasy. So if they had it, you know, if a headstone, you know, if you had a headstone section of pornography, would that kill the fantasy? And I could see also how it very well could. So yeah, I think if you light some candles or do some special stuff, maybe, you know, get out one of those, you know, a lot of times in some of the churches they'll have these little, the preacher will go, the priest will go up and down the aisles with this wand full of holy water and just, you know, he's just basically doing that's just skeeting out of his own wand, you know, but it's water. You know, it's spirit skeet, basically. It's holy water. And he's throwing that on people to get everybody hyped up about the, you know, about the, you know, about the Lord feeling good for everyone. He's getting everybody hyped up. But if you did that, maybe, or something around your house, you throw some sage, or you do something spectacular before you delve into it. You know, so you got a little bit of the protection of something good in your heart before you're out there jerking off to the deceased. Because anyway you look at it, in the end, you are jerking off to the deceased. So that's one way to see it. Here's some other ways to see it. You guys had some calls that came in. Here we go.
Hey man, this is Brandon calling from San Diego. I actually just saw your show at the Brea Improv. Anyway, I'm calling in regards to...
Oh, well, I appreciate that. You notice he didn't say that it was good? I think he might have been at the Saturday Night Late Show. Thank you for coming out, Brandon, though. I do appreciate you, man. Onward.
The gentleman that called in the last podcast asking if it was right to be jerking it to deceased porn stars. You know, there's two ways to look at this, I think. The one way is like, you know, you're thinking, man, this girl's dead in the ground. Like, this is her ghost fucking this dude. Like, can I even get hard to this? And if I can, like, should I nut to this? Like, does this feel right?
Now, that's a good point. There's two moments there. Should I get hard to this? Because getting hard to something, that's one thing. But catching that bust, that's another thing. You know? Freaking letting out that, you know, that fucking, that, you know, just letting that fucking, that nut goose fly out of your wand. That's something. That's another thing. That's two different things. So I'm glad you're saying this. Onward.
And, you know, I get that. You can get creeped out going down that path, but there's another way to look at it too, and that's that, you know, these girls, this was their passion, this is their career, this is, a lot of them loved what they did, you know, and it was an art to them. I just think about, like, when Michael Jackson died, man, like, the radios were blowing his songs up for weeks afterwards, you know, and, you know, people still listen to his music now. I think that you can still have that connection with even a porn star too. It's just another medium of entertainment, isn't it? Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, it could be like the Mona Lisa. People still go see that. I mean, early pornography, when you think about it, is in all these books and the Rodin and all those, like, all these famous old painters, these, you know, Peter Paul Rubens, I think the man's name was. They would paint all these women, and they would put them in these big, you know, it's usually kind of Rubenesque, sort of, you know, healthy, regular-looking girls, and they would put them in these magazines. A lot of times they'd be laying in the woods or have, like, an apple near them or a couple of pieces of fruit or some, usually fruits or something like that, or maybe sometimes there'd be a fox, I feel like, in the back, like a fox or maybe a little animal, but usually it was like them just laying there, you know, long, pretty hair, and that was early pornography. You know, that was it, and that is now considered collector's art. I mean, some of those paintings are worth, it's a baffling amount of money. But that, I mean, look, pornography is so popular, you would not believe it. Pornography had, the first videos you could watch online were pornography. Think about that. Now everything's video. The first ones you could watch online were pornography. Pornography has led the explosion and the dissemination. I don't think that's what the word is, but it's led, like, after the Bible was printed. You know, once the Bible was printed, after that, pictures of freaking ladies started milling around. You know, they'd have dudes walking 3 nights out into the desert to dig up a picture of old, you know, the original camel toe that they had hid out there to jerk off. And that's what was going on. You know, when the internet started and people were one of the first, the biggest catalogs of collected images, one of the first and biggest was pornography. People looking to jerk off. People want to look at the Constitution, make sure it was real, basically, just Xeroxes of it or whatever they could see online. And then there was huge catalogs of pornography. When the Berlin Wall fell, here's a fact for you. When the Berlin Wall fell, a lot of pornography could get out of there. People needed money. So you could buy, there were these, like, moguls, these pornography moguls who were buying, you know, for $100, they'd get a, you know, 200 images of a sexy, you know, Polish girl or German girl, and then they would sell subscriptions to people online on some of these early sites, and they'd sell them for a ton of money. They were making so much money, it was crazy. But porn, I mean, the first thing they get, I bet you if you go back to hieroglyphics, I bet they got, the first thing you see is like a fire, a little bit of directions, maybe a recipe. Somebody drew like some wheat and plus, you know, a picture of some, you know, maybe a boar's hip or something, or a cut of vark or a fucking pheasant or a damn moose or something, you know, plus water pot equals, and then, you know, they draw pictures of people eating together. But if you walk down that cave and look probably behind a little bit of a rock or a few pictograms over, somebody sketched out some crotch or some cooter or some pornography. It's a huge business. It's heavy. It's big. It's a big thing. It might even start to behoove them to have a section that is, you know, epitaph porn or, you know, rest in rest in porn. That could be a cute little section they could do. So I'm curious to see, as more and more porn stars die, how do they embrace this as an industry? I wonder if they still get residuals off of that. I don't think they do. I think from everything that I know, a lot of these girls just get flat fees. I should have asked Zoe that. But man, if you've seen Zoe, boy, you got to get out there, boy. She's done. Man, I wish I could do. My butt cannot even do any of those tricks, and I'm grateful that it can't, but she really got, she's, man, make you get off the bus, boy, and walk out in the woods, dude. Man, make you get out there and be alone by yourself and be by yourself. Okay, let's catch a couple more responses here. Well, here's one more we got.
Hey, Theo, what's up, man? This is G from Phoenix. Just calling in about JP's question, jerking off to dead porn star. I think that it would be disrespectful not to, because that's kind of like, that's their art form. You think if Denzel Washington died, that he would want us to stop watching Training Day? If anything, you should have a marathon and watch all of them. I don't know if you could do that in a row, especially some of these bigger ones, because they have such a volume of work. It just translates like that. Denzel would want us to remember the Titans, not block it out and not ever watch it again.
Well, true, that's a good point. But if you remember the Titans, dude, and you out there trying to remember them, I'm not jerking off to remember the Titans. That's the thing. I'm not out there jerking off to, Sergeant Sully lands the plane or whatever that movie was. So that's the thing. It's different if you're at the movie theater and Denzel Washington's dead and you're jerking off to, whatever, Stand By Me or something I think he might have been in. Then that's fucked up. But if with a porn star, it's a little different because there is that physical connection where there's expected to be, I think, a release. But I respect that. It'd be disrespectful not to watch. They did the work. They put it out there. In 30 years, this could be like those, like the books when I used to go see in the library. And I've told this story before that when I was young, I was into pornography early, and once I saw it, the first real porno magazines I found in my the first one, this boy at the library showed me a picture of it and beat me up, and then we had this other kid before that used to draw. You have to draw crotches. If you wanted to see a crotch, you had to get him to draw you one, because this dude was, he was just like Jared the Jeweler. This dude had the best. He could draw. Oh. He could draw it all. And that's what you get for the weekend. Give him, $6 or something and get that drawing of crotch for the weekend. But then, I started going to the library and seeing these Rubenesque women in these old volumes of, in the library. And dude, I remember I'd be so erect in there, in that library. And I would take this book and literally close the book on my wiener. And just kind of smash it against it, like press the book against it on both sides until I, expelled joy out of my body. And that's just being young. I think I was probably 12, And we've all done weird stuff, and I'm not proud of that, but I don't feel a lot of shame of it, because this wasn't a time, that's how, if we wanted porn, it was so rare to come across. So anything that would get me lit a little bit in the crotch, I would find it. And I found those, these were encyclopedias, art encyclopedias. And they had pictures from Rodin and Peter Paul Rubens and some of these other artists. And I'd get in there and just look at the picture and then just close it up on because just that pressure on your rod at that time, at that youth, with that virility going through you, really brought you to the end of, it brought you to what you wanted. It brought you to want to, get that free ounce out of your body. But here we go. One more call right here, and this came in from Jennifer. Here we go.
Hi, this is Jennifer, and there was a question about the porn star thing. I don't really think that it's wrong to masturbate to a porn star that's dead. I just think it's kind of like, it's artwork in its own way, I guess. I think if they cared, they would have wrote a will and said, when I die, take my shit offline. Hi, this is...
Well, and there you go. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate that call. And I'm thinking about it more now as I'm even hearing it. Now when I hear a woman's voice say it right there, it puts it a little bit more, it makes it more real to me a little bit, you know, because the pornography that I watch is women. You know, I enjoy women's sex and man and woman sex together. You know, I enjoy heterosexual sex on the internet watching. That's what if I do watch, which I try not to watch anymore. That's what I watch. But if I, after hearing Jennifer's voice right there, it kind of, I don't know, in a weird way, it just made me have a little bit more, not respect for women, but it made it more real all of a sudden. That just now, just in this moment of hearing her voice, talking about it, for me, and this won't be for anybody else, but I think that I would now, I want to know if they're deceased or not. I think that they should put a regulation on the porn websites. If someone is deceased, have a little headstone pop up in the beginning, you know, or like have a cross or a Star of David or a Hindu statue, whatever, or Muslims, whatever their religion was, have something, a 2-second homage to that. Maybe have or have the head, have the memoriam, Busty Barbara, 1998 to 2007. Have that bust up every now and then. Or is that old enough? Yeah, okay, good. Have that pop up every now and then, so at least you know what's going on. But I would like that, and because otherwise I don't want to be out there busting nuts to, I don't want to be out there ejaculating to the deceased. And you know why? Because there's tons of women on the websites who are not deceased. And that sits better in my soul. So I think that these sites should have a little bit of respect and put the women into a special folder or a special, site box or whatever that says, the graveyard or whatever, so that then at least you can you can masturbate slower, or you can wear something nice while you masturbate, or you can have some regard for the fact you can light some candles. Like I said, you could do the sage, you could do whatever. You could have some regard for the fact that these women are no longer alive. Because I don't think when I get to the reckoning spot or whatever it is, when I get into that great big cliff in the air, and the spirit that's out there, the higher power, whatever it is, says jump, and that's when you find out if the big dog gonna catch you in his hand, or the big woman, whoever it is, or are they going to let you fall down into the smithereens, and a dragon is just going to fucking eat your legs off while you're falling through the air? I don't want that to be another anvil that's weighing down in my body, deep in my soul, that I was making free ones to the deceased. I don't want it. And simply because there's enough work out there where I don't need it. So I'll take that right there. What else? I want to talk about the game, dude. I still don't know who won. I could easily see that Minnesota completed 2 passes and got in field goal range. I could easily see that. What else? Right here, I'm going to check in. That's it, man. I had some more stuff I wanted to get into, but this is in the news. I'm going to hit this news story real quick. A man claiming to be a police detective went to his local adult porn shop and demanded they give him free porn videos so he can make sure none of the performers were underage. What a smut muppet. He made 3 attempts within a 9-day span when the store owner finally had enough and called the police. This man is still on the run. If you encounter a man claiming to be with the... Sorry, this is making me laugh. It's not cool. With the age verification unit, make sure you don't give him any of your porn for free and alert the police immediately. And like Zoe said right there, man, a few minutes ago, hit the sites that she mentioned. Pay for the porn. Get the good stuff. Get involved. Support your artists. If Picasso said, "Hey man, you want to come watch me paint?" You're like, "Nah, just look at your old shit all the time." He's like, "It's $3 to get in here and watch me sketch something out." Would you go watch him, bust a fucking series of color nuts out of his hand and imagination? Would you go watch him paint and make something? You might. Instead of just looking at his old shit. So support that. Support that. We have 2 more calls that came in. Actually, one was an email that I wanted to get some maybe some suggestions you guys might have. If anybody out there has kids, you guys might have some information on this. I'm going to tell you my upcoming dates. This weekend, I'll be at the New Comedy Club in Jacksonville, Florida. That's the 18th through the 20th. I'll be at Harvey's in Portland, February 8th through 11th. February 16th through the 18th, I'll be at La Jolla, California at the Comedy Store. February 22nd through the 24th, I'll be in Indio, California at Fantasy Springs. And April 6th and 7th, I'll be in Tampa, Florida at Rock Brothers Brewing. There's also, I think, March 22nd and 23rd, I'll be in Tacoma, Washington. Let's hit one more call right here. Here we go.
Hi, Theo. My name is Nicole. I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
Thank you for your call, Nicole. Onward.
I'm a stay-at-home mom. I have a young boy, and I'm expecting another young boy here in a few months.
Oh, congratulations. He's going to have a brother. That's pretty special. I don't think, you can't really plan ahead on a lot of that, I don't think as a parent, maybe you don't know what you're creating when you make a brother for a kid. But that can be, there's no other relationship like that. So, I commend you on being brave enough to have 2 children, because not only you're going to be creating a relationship with you and your son, you're going to be broadening your family, but you are giving a kid a brother. And there's nothing, I can't explain to you, I'm fortunate enough to have a brother, and I can't explain to you what that relationship is like. It hasn't always been great, but it's just it's so great to have a brotherhood, to be able to compare and navigate how I'm supposed to behave towards other men, and how and have someone who already is a little bit of a blueprint of myself out there to look at and feed off of, to get ideas and inklings for things and get some advice and some suggestions. So you're really creating something awesome. So I commend you for that. Onward.
And I, along with what seems like my entire community of girlfriends, we were all professionals that chose to stay at home. And when that happened, we saw that we were underserved in the capacity that we're taught how to be great employees, great coworkers, but we have never been taught how to manage a home and to raise children, do all of those things, a bit more traditional in nature. So my question to you is, especially since you have talked to us a lot about the sort of war against men, the culture of irresponsibility, which we all see that's happened and is happening. What are some things that you as a man would advise new moms to instill in their young sons to be later good men? Does that make sense? I hope so. Hi, Theo. My name is Nicole.
And that just circles back around. Her call, sometimes it just plays. If I let it go through, it starts back over. But that's a great question. Let's hear the very end of it again. Here we go. One more time.
Are some things that you as a man would advise new moms to instill in their young sons to be later good men?
That does make sense. Sorry to clear my throat there. It does make sense. If, I think spending time with them one-on-one as they get a little bit older, as they get to be like 5, 6, 7, 8, spend some time just separately. Go do something separate with your son. One of the only things I ever got to do with my mom that was just me and her was we went to Wendy's one time. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot, and I probably have talked about this before, but, my mother worked all the time. She didn't want us to be on welfare, so she worked. And I'm not saying that she's better than your mom. I'm not saying that she's better than your grandmother or she's any different. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm just saying that and I think she worked sometimes too because she was probably stressed out from having 4 children. She didn't know what else to do maybe sometimes, so she did what she knew how to do, which was to work. But one time I was sick or something. I couldn't be at school. I could have gotten, expelled maybe, or not expelled, but suspended. And so I had to go to work with my mom. And we rode around, it's like different cities or whatever, and we're delivering like magazines. She was delivering magazines at the time. And we were delivering these magazines. And it was just kind of cool because I got to be with her. It was just me and her. And we went to Wendy's for lunch. And I'd never went to a lunch place just with me and my mom before. And we there was too long of a line inside, so we went through the drive-thru and we got sandwiches and we just rode around and ate them. And I'm sure I was probably an asshole that day, but, as a typical kid. But looking back, I remember it as like one of my favorite times where I got to spend time with just me and my mother. So I would just make sure that, or I don't know, make sure I don't have a family, but I think that that's important to make sure there's some connection there. And then, I think try not to tell your son, he don't always want to hear what will do better. Sometimes he just wants you to love him and just let him know that he's okay. And to, let him know that you love him. That's it. Sometimes a kid doesn't want to always hear how it could be better, how he could have done it different or what, because they don't, that's adult stuff. And I've struggled with that over my life, telling people they could do better. Sometimes people just want to hear that they're not alone, and especially your son will want to hear that. And then I would take some control, and I would talk to him about how he treats women, because I don't think that's a conversation that just men need to have with their sons anymore. I do think that that's a conversation that women need to have. And I commend you. I think that the toughest thing a woman can do is be a mom and to manage the home and to take the risk of there being less income in the home, to stay at home and create that family. But if we can get out of what the world tells us is good and we can get back into what our heart tells us is right or good, I'm not going to say right, that's not the word, but feels good, then I think, we'll find a lot of times that it's being with our family, and having those fun times and having those, ridiculous. My favorite time that I ever had when I was young was when the power went out and my family would all be together and we couldn't fight or beat each other because they had candles lit, and it's dangerous to beat each other around candles. So we would just be together, and we were kind of scared and nervous, but we were all together, like in one place. My mom had 2 candles, and so we would have to be by her, and we would have to be together. And it was just, I don't know, there was something special about that. So, I think those are a few things, but that might be some good calls, man. Maybe we can do that. Have a couple of calls that come in about that. If you guys have some thoughts on that, and that's, you heard her question, and I appreciate that question. I'm going to play it for you guys one more time. Here we go.
That's happened and is happening. What are some things that you as a man would advise new moms to instill in their young sons to be later good men? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I mean, some of those are just going to be general, regular things, but I think I would love to hear some answers on this question for today, for today's society, today's times. Because there is some evolution that needs to happen in, I think, some of the ways that we communicate. We can't help it. Evolution is happening. It's like we have to communicate now on, cellular devices. And, I think, so it's got to be a lot harder for parents. So maybe, I don't know what's, I'd love to maybe hear if you guys have some stuff. I had some more awesome calls that came in, and I wanted to get to some of them. I just have to go do this comedy set, guys. I'm sorry, but I will be back on Thursday, and we'll get into some more good stuff, dude. You guys stay safe out in Hawaii. They had a mailman in Louisiana that finally admitted to burning all the mail instead of delivering it. And you know what, dude? That's fucking awesome, but also go fuck yourself, bruh. Mark Wayne Thompson pled guilty to delay or destruction of mail. Thompson admitted that instead of delivering mail, he just took it home with him and burned it. As a result, he now faces up to 5 years in prison. or 3 years supervised release. That's hilarious. What you in for, man? Oh, fucking cooking up a batch of cooking up a batch of Bed Bath and Beyond coupons. Oh, what is the world coming to? I don't know, but I think we can embrace it with a smile as it does. There is dark stuff going on out there. Porn stars are dying. People are jerking off to dead people on the internet. And you might not like the way I frame that, but that's a real framing. That is a real framing, boy. That's Michael's. That's done in the back of Michael's. You know it. It's more expensive than you thought. That's real framing. But there's still also those mothers out there who are asking, how can they help and do and raise their kids? And they want to know from kids who have grown up. What could your mother or your mother, what did she do, or what could your mother have done that you think would have helped you along the way? And that is a good way I think we can frame that question. So I appreciate you guys' calls, man. I appreciate everybody that came out in Brea. I hope to see you guys soon. We'll do some ads in the upcoming episode. Oh, that's my brother. My brother right there. What's up, Z?
Hey, bruh. You saw it?
Dude, don't tell me what happened. No. I didn't. Look, do not tell me.
Oh, man, you should have texted me, man.
Well, that's why I didn't.
I wouldn't have told you anything if you had said, hey, don't tell me anything about the game.
No, actually, this is a perfect ending because I'm just finishing up my podcast. This is the very end, and I don't know what happened. I paused it right after the Saints kicked their field goal. There was 25 seconds left.
Yeah.
And you're on the podcast now, and I can take this off later if you want, but...
okay.
But why don't you tell me what happened? I want to know.
Oh, now you want to know what happened in the game?
Well, yeah, now's the time to know. This is almost, I'm just finishing the podcast. This is the perfect time, and we were just talking about brotherhood and stuff a minute ago, so this is kind of... It's perfect.
All right, we want me to give about 10 minutes about who I am? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, dude.
Well, there was 10 seconds left. It's third and 10 or whatever. They need about 20 yards to get a field goal range, 25 yards, maybe more than that.
Uh-huh.
And, I'll put it like this. There's a 1 in 100 chance that the Saints lose. 1%.
Yeah.
And they fell into that 1%. Yeah, they lost. Dude, he threw it to Tavon Diggs, whatever his name is. The dude caught it like the 40, right?
Right.
About probably 4 feet from the sideline. Marcus Williams was right there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, all he had to do was literally pull him to the ground. But for some weird reason, when Tavon Diggs jumped in the air, Marcus Williams, dove underneath him. I don't know what he was doing. I think he was trying to upend him or something.
Mm-hmm.
And when he dove underneath him and missed him, clearly missed him.
Wow.
By 2 feet. He rolled into the other cornerback. I don't know it might have been Lattimore, who it was there. Then Tavon Diggs just ran into the end zone.
No, they got a touchdown?
Yeah, it was 0 seconds on the clock. Yeah, 10 seconds left, dude. They were on our 35?
Yeah.
No, on their own 35 or 40, yeah. A 1% chance we would lose that game at that point.
Damn, man.
I think they lost like that, similar to Tampa Bay. I didn't see the end of the Tampa Bay game, but
it just kind of makes me mad.
Man. It was a heartbreak, man. It really was, because I didn't think we'd win that game. We were down 17-0 at the half.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't think we'd win going in. We had like a 30 or 40% shot, and we came back and really played really well the second half. And
yeah,
dude just made such a weird play. I don't know what he was. I really don't know what he was doing. I can't figure it out. They contained him well. It was like a last ditch effort, basically, is what it was. And I just don't see how.
Yeah.
But it happened. It's over now. Our season's over. I still can't believe it, but it is over. But man,
yeah, the weirdest stuff, dude. Damn, man.
I know we had the game, man.
Did we? I figured we have a really, really good shot here, man.
Yeah, I'm ready to go smoke some crack now.
Damn, dude, you out there, boy? Quick question. So actually, we had a lady that called in, and she said, "What is something?" She's about to have her second child, and she said, "What is something that mothers can do with their sons these days to help make them better men?" And it's kind of a question for mothers, but it's also a question for sons. What do you think is one thing?
Something a mother can do with their children to make them better men, their sons?
Yeah, or something they could talk to them, instill in them. I don't know. I think it was a little bit broad, but
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's a lot you can do when those children are young to make them better men when they get older.
mm-hmm.
I think I don't know, some of that male stuff we learn when they're a little bit older, but when they're young, I think the best thing mother could do is emotionally connect with their children and be emotionally available.
Yeah.
Don't make sure that the child knows that their behavior does not determine your love for them, even if it makes you upset what they do, what they don't do. And another thing though is you can tell children early on, you can explain certain things to them. You might have to simplify it, but they will understand you.
Right.
I tell my 5-year-old, I've been telling them, my 5 and 4-year-old, they're 6 and 5 now, but even since they were 4, if I'm mad at you, it doesn't mean I don't love you.
Mm.
All right, no matter what you do, I'll love you.
Mm.
Now, that's what you do may get you in trouble, but it does not mean I don't love you. And they understand,
Yeah. Now that's huge.
Yeah, my 5-year-old will say, "You're mad at me, you don't love me." He'll say that. Max will say that.
Ooh.
And I'll say, "No, it doesn't mean that. It means that I'm mad at you." So you kind of, you just got to help them along. And emotional availability, and accept unconditional love is what they need. I mean, that's the only type of I feel like in life that needs unconditional love or warranted is father, parent, child, especially mother, child. I mean, they have to know that you love them no matter what they do. Even if they kill somebody when they're 8 or 10. I mean, I'm not saying, I'm just an extreme example.
No, they got some young hitters out there.
Yeah. the amount of your love should not waver. Now.
Yeah, because you're the only place they can get that.
Right. And you may choose not to talk to them or be extremely disappointed not to talk to them for a year, whatever, but, so I think it's real important, because sometimes in our society where our worth is built on what we do or what we don't do. And I think that a lot of that starts in parenthood, when the children are young.
Yeah. You can fill that tank up early and let them know that. Now, look, man, I even just liked hearing that, that not what, my behavior, if I would have heard that when I was young, I think I would have, I might be a little bit of a healthier person today, Yeah,
no, me too. I mean, as you know, me too.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I appreciate you calling. I'm going to call you later because I got to run. I literally have to drive straight to Brea right now.
All right, I'm going to go hit this crack. Love you.
Damn, love you too. Bye.
Bye.
That's my brother, Zeffirino. He lives down in, Baton Rouge, Louisiana. But, yeah, I think that's an interesting answer. He really likes to think about this kind of stuff, and he loves to be a parent. And his wife is a stay-at-home mom, and that's a CEO in my book. I mean, if I could go back in time, and this just got me a little bit emotional, but if I could go back in time and have anything, I would have that, I mean, I can't even imagine what that would be like, to just be at home and be having fun and be comfortable and have your mom around, So, but anyhow, dude, you guys are hitting me in a hot beat here at the end. But that's a great question. We'll leave it right there. I had a lovely young a gentleman, Mr. Ochoa, who messaged in. He's afraid to call in. He had a question I thought was interesting. But we're going to get to that on Thursday, brother. So if you're out there, hold the line, and we'll see you then. If you have questions, hit the hotline 985-664-95. All time. Some people know that. Some people don't. Now you know it. Michael Landon, bruh. I bring this to you. It is January 16th. It's 12:40 a.m. I had a show tonight at the Hollywood Improv, and afterwards I had a fan of mine, a lady that I've met through comedy, brought me 2 shirts as a gift. One of them had You Know Who, your boy, Michael Landon on the front. Oh, beautiful shirt, dude. Some type of cotton, black cotton or something. And another shirt, it said, All Day I Dream About Michael Landon. Now that one might be a little bit of a reach, but still, you gotta love Michael Landon. I grew up watching Little House on the Prairie. It was like the only time my brothers and sisters and I would sit together in sheer joy was in the morning. It came on every morning on TBS. And it still does, actually. It might come on in the afternoons now, but it came on every morning. Little House on the Prairie. If you don't know the show, it's about a man and his children, and they just doing their best, bro. They're doing their best, and I loved it, dude. We would sit there and watch it. We would fight to be in front of the TV. We had like this 12-inch color TV. I think it was color. I don't remember. I was a kid, so even if it's black and white when you're a kid, you can imagine there's color there. But man, we would sit and watch the episodes. I found an episode here online. The first season, first episode, Little House on the Prairie. The episode called A Harvest of Friends, bruh. I'm going to read to you the synopsis of it. The original air date, September 11th, 1974. In the first episode of season 1, the Ingalls, that's the family, settle on the banks of Plum Creek. Charles asks the Olsons for credit to buy a plow and seed, but they explain they can only offer credit to farmers they've known for a long time. Dun, dun, dun. Charles ends up making a deal with Mr. O'Neill. In exchange for a plow and seed, Charles agrees to repair O'Neill's roof and stack his grain within 3 weeks. After completing the roof, Charles decides to take the family on an all-day picnic to make up for the time he's spent working. Unfortunately, he falls out of a tree while trying to retrieve a kite. Oh, that kite hustle, and breaks his ribs. O'Neill assumes Charles won't be able to stack the grain and takes the oxen a day early. Losing the oxen, bruh. Charles can't afford to lose the oxen and tries to stack the grain with broken ribs. He collapses. And then Laura and Mary start stacking the grain. Dr. Baker, Mr. Hanson, and Mr. Olson and other townspeople see the girls struggling and team up to stack all the grain, allowing Charles to keep his oxen. That's teamwork, bruh. That's family, man. You can't stack the grain. You can't get the job done. Your neighbors come to help you, bruh. That's what I loved. I think that's what I loved about it, man. Just seeing, like, camaraderie and teamwork. Because it wasn't like that in my neighborhood, dude. Bro, I remember first time I ever pulled up into my neighborhood, bro, growing up. Because my parents got divorced. We ended up in this shitty neighborhood. And the first day we got there, these two grown men, this older man, he was a senior citizen. He was fighting a bus driver. They were fighting in the street, a school bus driver. School bus driver, he didn't wear a shirt. You know, he chose not to wear shirts or just didn't do shirts. But they were fighting, and they had a ditch fire going. And a ditch fire, instead of, waiting for somebody to come and get your trash, people would just burn all their trash in the ditch. I guess it could have created some carbon monoxide issues or, it could have affected the environment. I don't know. We didn't have an environment. So, anyway, the bus driver threw this old dude into the ditch fire, bro. The old dude, everybody's like, going over to try to help. But then this old dude, bro, gets wiry because, old dudes got old dude strength. This dude just got up out of the fire. His arm was still burning. He had flames coming off his back. And he went and attacked the dude again, bro. Attacked the bus driver. And that was the first day I ever spent in my neighborhood. When I saw that shit, I was like, damn, man. We're fucked. My family is fucked. So yeah, that was my old neighborhood. So I think when I saw things like Little House on the Prairie with like camaraderie, they had a doctor if you got hurt. Like they had a dude in my neighborhood that got hurt. He broke his clavicle, right? And or his collarbone or collarbone. And his shirt never fit the same. Nobody took him to a doctor. His shirt never fit right again. He had kind of that slope coming in a little bit on the left. I mean, he couldn't keep a raindrop on his shoulder. That's for damn sure. So anyway, man, I guess I loved Little House on the Prairie. And tonight somebody bought me this Michael Landon t-shirt. I put it up on my Instagrams. It was cool, man. It was just nice. It was like a nice thing I didn't expect. You know, that's nice when something happens that's unexpected. That's a beautiful thing. I got to remember to try to do that more often for other people. Just do something nice, you know? Dude, I always wanted to break into somebody's house and install an alarm. That used to be like kind of this idea of mine. Like, I'm going to break in and install an alarm. But then I thought, what if you break in, somebody's there, you get shot up? Then you can't be like, you know, don't shoot me, I'm here to put in an alarm. I just don't know if they would buy it. So maybe I'm just going to sit on that idea, bro. I'm going to sit on that idea. But ring the good idea bell, because that is a good idea. That is a good idea. Good to chat with you or be here. It is Monday, January 16th. It's actually Sunday night. I haven't gone to bed yet. It is 12:48 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I had a pretty good weekend, man. What'd you do? I know you watched some football probably, huh? Did you watch some football? There's a lot of good games on, man. I threw a little wager down. I bet on today's games. I bet Pittsburgh. I took Pittsburgh in a point, and I bet Green Bay would win. That was a game, huh? What about that footwork by Aaron Rodgers? He barely even separates his legs. He's just like a little dancer out there. He just kind of like just move. He's like a little like Billy Elliot, you know? He's like Billy Elliot from that British movie, you know? I'm not a poof dad. It's about a young gentleman. His father thinks that he's homosexual because he wants to dance. But he's not, you know? Or he may be, who knows? That he doesn't really go all into that, but he just wants to be a dancer, man. And I'll be honest with you, I think I could have been a dancer, bro. I mean, there are days, dude, when my feet just feel light, you know, and I really feel like I could have made a name for myself in some of those, you know, some of those circles, some of those dancing circles, but I just didn't have the support when I was younger emotionally to tell me it's okay to get out there and dance, you know? I just didn't have it, man. I didn't have it. So if you got a kid that wants to dance, get him some dancing shoes, man. You know? I could still tap dance. I met a guy yesterday who was an adult tap dancer. He was dressed like he was from Boardwalk Empire, kind of. So that was a little bit squirrely, but he's an adult tap dancer. And I talked to him about it a little bit. I will say it did seem a little strange when he just started just dropping feet everywhere. Like he would just break into some, you know, just fancy footwork. So maybe it's not for me. I don't know. I thought it felt like, Jesus Christ, somebody fucking, you know, get this dude a Game Boy or something. You know, somebody get this guy a PlayStation 6 or something. I don't know. But yeah, Green Bay won that game, huh? What a game. Both games. Dude, and then the Dallas fans, I don't know if you heard this, Dallas fans, they had a bunch of severe storms in the area and tornadoes. Some of them had to stay. They weren't allowed to leave the stadium. And that's obviously the last ones, the most inebriated ones. They're stuck in there. All the media was stuck in there. Some of the players were stuck there. So apparently they were all just hanging out on the middle of the field. I bet that was pretty interesting, you know. I'd be pissed, though, you know. You're starving. Your team lost. $14 hot dogs, that's all they got for sale. You know, the cheerleaders are all fully dressed now. I'm out. Jerry Jones probably just offered them like some cups of water or something, you know. Nothing fancy. I don't know. I watched that game. It was good, man. That Pittsburgh game looked cold, didn't it? Oh, those guys look freezing cold. I don't know if I could do it. I'm at the age now where I think I've given up. Like there were years where I would watch football and be like, I could be out there. Even though I never played football. I never played it. I played it at home. You know, we played 3 times a week in our neighborhood. I never played organized football. We didn't have health insurance, so I was always afraid, you know, of getting jacked up. I'd just be that dude you know, I'd be like frickin' the dude with the bad clavicle, you know? The dude that can't hold a raindrop on his shoulder, bro. I didn't want to be like that. You know, they had another man in our town, Elvis impersonator. I think I've told this story, actually. But he broke his leg, and they set it in cement to save money, and it healed up fine. But then when they rebroke the cast, they broke it with a sledgehammer and rebroke his leg and hip in about 7 places. This dude, he was an Elvis impersonator. I think I mentioned that. Anyway, man, what else is going on? Jimmy Snuka died. Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I don't know if you knew this guy or not. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. He was a wrestler. Professional wrestler. Dude, before I forget this, I was in the airport one time. I saw Evander Holyfield, the boxer, right? Famous boxer. Got his ear bit off by Mike Tyson. I saw him in the airport in Chicago a few years ago. And he was sitting at a McDonald's. And the McDonald's had a front porch. It had like a little outlet that you could sit there, and it kind of jutted out into the terminal walkway. So I'm walking along, and I see Evander Holyfield. He's just sitting there. And he's got a bunch of fries, man. Fries only. Nothing else. Just fries. And he was taking these fries. And just shoving them into his mouth. And he couldn't even open his mouth. I don't know if he'd just been punched so many times. Or maybe he could open his mouth. He was just tired. You know, I never been so tired that I didn't open my mouth when I was putting food in it. I guess you could just shove food through your frickin', flap curtain lips. But he was just shoving fries through his lips. Like it was like kind of like at the whenever you get your luggage at an airport, if you miss the luggage and it just goes back through those black curtains, through the black plastic flaps. It was like that with him. He was just shoving these fries just through his flaps, through his face flaps. And I was baffling to me. I'm like, maybe he'd been beaten so bad he just can't open his mouth anymore. Well, anyway, they had this little lady, this young girl, actually, kind of a middle-aged child, basically, maybe 17 or 20, who worked down at the Cinnabon. You know, the Cinnabon, that's just a little fat center in the airport where they got them good smells. So you go over there, and they got 19 different sizes of a cinnamon roll, bro. 2 bites, and you feel like you got to take a nap because your sugar's all up. But this girl runs up. Evander is sitting there just shoving fries through his face flaps. And this girl runs up and she's just standing there right in front of him. And she goes, ooh. And he looks over and she goes, ooh. I used to watch you wrestle. And dude, I about lost my mind. I used to watch you wrestle to a professional boxer. Ooh, I used to watch you wrestle. Anyway, that's my wrestler story. I was a big wrestling fan. Jimmy Superfly Snuka, he died. I think he was in his 70s. What does it say here? Let me find it here. Jimmy Snuka. Yeah, he died, man. He died. 73 years old. He died. He had stomach cancer. Kind of broke my heart when I heard about it. He was supposed to go on trial, I think, recently, or was soon to go on trial for. He allegedly murdered his girlfriend. Not a cool move, Not a cool move, dude. He allegedly killed his girlfriend in 1983, but they dropped the charges because he was going to die. I guess he had terminal cancer, and that was going to be that, and so they dropped those charges. But they found his girlfriend in a hotel room, I guess, a long time ago, in Pennsylvania, and she wasn't living anymore. He said she fell down. Yeah, right, dude. You're a wrestler, bro. You know, there was a body slam or a frickin' leg gypsy hold or something. A frickin' chop. Something you did. But yeah, man, Jimmy Superfly Snuka dead. He was the one, man. He was the one growing up that just electrified me. I loved wrestling. You know, I grew up poor, white. Those were our heroes. Those seemed, for some reason, poor white people, we love wrestling, bruh. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the abuse, it's the steroids, it's just how easy it is to take in. You just believe it. For some reason, everybody in my neighborhood loved wrestling. We just believe in those heroes, man. Those were our heroes. Yeah. The guy allegedly killed his girlfriend. Now that I couldn't do, man. I couldn't kill my girlfriend. You know? I've had, let me see, 3 girlfriends, which isn't really a lot. You know, because I'm emotionally damaged. Hard to connect sometimes. But I've had 3 girlfriends. Could I have killed any of them? Yeah, I could have killed. Some of them wasn't very bright. So I could have maybe not killed them. I couldn't have killed them, no. So I'm going to say that. I couldn't have killed them. I could have gotten so angry at both of us that I could have driven us off of a cliff or something like Thelma and Louise. I could have seen something like that, possibly, you know. If it was, you know, say we're moving across country together and, you know, some ignorance hits an all-time high, I could have just seen me just veering us off a cliff, maybe. I don't know. New Mexico. Maybe in New Mexico. But yeah. But I couldn't. I don't know if I could kill anybody. I love murder shows, dude. I love murder shows. Buried Treasure. That show Disappeared, where people are just missing. Jesus. I used to go look in the woods when I was growing up for missing people, for missing bodies and stuff. I guess I thought when I was young that like the woods behind your house or near your house were like the same woods everywhere. You know, that the woods were the woods. So whenever I would watch those shows, those Unsolved Mysteries or America's Most Wanted, and like a body was missing, I would be like, it might be in the woods. So I'd go look. And knowing my neighborhood, it could have been, man. You know? Anything was possible. They had the first funeral I went to. The dude that got thrown in the ditch fire, years later, he died, right? So I'm walking down the street with my buddy Danny, and he was born with some deficiencies. He had extra salivary glands in his face, so he was always kind of spraying out of his face. When he would smile or feel real joyous, he would, you know, kind of spout out at the corners of his mouth. And then he also had was born with like a wrist in his neck. His neck had just an involuntary spin to it about every maybe 5 seconds. His neck would just flare around in just like a circle like that, you know, just like he would look to the left and then look straight up and then to the right and then back to center, just involuntarily. Anyway, he and I are walking down the street, and the man who got thrown in the ditch fire, his son was there. And he said, "You guys want to come to a service?" And I didn't know what a service was, man. I thought it was, you know, I don't know what I thought it was. I probably thought it was something religious. And I guess I was right in that sense, because we walk into the backyard and they had buried the man. They had put him in a coffin, in a pine or something coffin, maybe could have been teak. It looked pretty something malleable wood. And they put him in the ground, and there was some chairs set up, some folding chairs, some of those kind of brown folding chairs. And we all sat there, and they read some scripture, and then they buried this man in the backyard. And they're like, "Does anybody want to say some words, you know? Does anybody want to say some words?" And I didn't know what to say, you know? So I just, you know, try to do the sign of the cross, even though I didn't know it. And then Danny, this dude, he said, he stood up and said the grace that you say before dinner, whatever it, bless us, O Lord, and these thy gifts, we are about to receive thy bounty through Christ our Lord, amen. And then, like, God, we thank you for this food. And I'm thinking to myself, that's definitely not the fucking prayer you say when somebody's dying, but he didn't know any better. Anyway, fucking that was it, dude. What the hell, man? Thinking back, that's baffling, dude, that we're standing next to a funeral and he says grace. He said dinner grace. Whatever. That's life, dude. Or that's death. But I loved wrestling, bro. Dude, my brother and I, we used to push the beds apart in our room, and that would be like two sides of the ring, and we would just wrestle, bro. And we had charts of like all the different wrestlers, and we each drew names, and that's the wrestler we were, and whoever would win, that wrestler would be eliminated. Man, that was fun, dude. That was fun. Those were the good old days, man. That's what we did. We got outside. We didn't have this before they had the wrestling video game, so we had to go do it. Whatever. Now they got the game, so these kids don't have to do it. We had to go impersonate those adventures. We couldn't just sit in front of a TV and be a pilot or we had Super Mario and they had some, eventually John Madden came out. But before that, we just had to go and pretend we were these things. So that's sometimes my issue with video games, is that it just takes the place of an imagination. It's like, why do I don't blame a kid. They don't know any better. They don't have to imagine anything anymore if it can just be presented to them in front of them. But anyway, man, that was wild. But yeah, that Kansas City game looked so cold. Couldn't do it, dude. I couldn't even go stay. I wanted to live in New York. I wanted to stay there for a little bit longer, but I got to wait till it warms up. I can't be there in the winter like that. Just chills your bones, just makes you feel like a dead body that's still just walking around. What else, man? I've been watching that show, The OA. Have you seen this? It's on Netflix, The OA. I heard the ending is horrible, but everything before the ending, my God. It's awesome, bro. It's like people that had a near-death experience. And then this scientist, I don't want to tell you what happens, but if you like it, if you like a little bit of kidnapping and some, it's got some light science fiction, it's right on. And I don't know, I heard the ending is not good, but I guess I'll just enjoy, the meantime. That show's good, dude. I want to watch Shameless. I haven't seen that. What else? I don't know. Oh, could I kill my girlfriend? I couldn't, I couldn't kill my girlfriend. Could I kill someone? I don't think I could do it, man. I just don't think I have it in me, And you got to hide the body. That's the thing, too. Like, I could understand how people could kill someone in a fit of rage. Something crazy happens. Their psyche breaks. And they just kill somebody, But then you got to hide the body, bruh. Nobody gets away with, so rare with the DNA. You got to make sure their phone isn't around because the phone sends a ping out, apparently. The towers, it's always like the phone was bouncing off these towers. You got to clean up, or you got to kill them real carefully, I guess. Like you got to invite them over and just have Visqueen all over your house. Maybe say some painters are coming. So that way, you're already prepared. I couldn't do it, though. Yeah, I couldn't do it. Oh, I'd hate that, dude. I'd hate to get murdered. I don't want to get murdered. I don't want to get murdered, dude. Hopefully I won't. Plane crash. Oh, I would hate a plane crash. Oh, that's got to be the worst. Oh, that's got to be the worst. What's the worst way to go? Anyway, I'm getting pretty dour here. I'm getting pretty damp here in my words here at night. It's late. It's late, man. This is what you get when it's late. I had a great show this weekend. I worked with Harlan Williams, who I'm a huge fan of. He was in Half Baked. You may know him from, and other things too. But in Half Baked, he had that scene where like he's gonna feed the horse all those groceries, And he's like, what can I get for you, big girl? And he's talking to the horse. And this black lady's walking by, and she thinks that he's talking to her. And she turns around and she's like, fuck you, nigga. That was baffling to me, man. That shit was hilarious. So I got to work with Harlan Williams, dude. And that was great. He came up to me afterwards and said that he really loved my set. Which was nice. Because, you know, when these older comedians or comedians that have been around longer, they come around and say something, or any job, you know. You know, it always feels good to, I think, you know, when somebody who's better than you and has more experience than you, and somebody you admire, you know, drops some good knowledge on you, or drops some admiration, or just pats you on the back. You know, so I got to remember to try to do that. Trying to be a better person. That shit's hard, isn't it? Trying to be a better person and live and just manage your regular life at the same time. It's hard, man. It's not easy. It's not easy. We're all trying. Hopefully we're all trying to be better people. I don't fucking know. Some days I just want to just get a bunch of ice cream and just, you know, just lay in the sheets and just try not to do masturbation. I gave into some masturbation this past week, so, you know, I'm back. I'm empty. You know, you could say it like that. I mean, that's nature, bro. You know, I didn't want to do it, I guess. I don't know. I had that moment where I was like, God, I know I want to, but I know in my brain that I don't want to. What do I do? Well, masturbation won, bro. It's a powerful drug. Your own dick, that's a powerful drug. Your own crotch, that's a powerful drug. Oh, let me listen to this. Get me back to sanity. Yeah. You gotta help with those bags of grain, huh? You broke your ribs playing in a tree. You gotta help with those bags of grain, huh? Help your friend with his grain. Be a good neighbor. We don't even know who our neighbors are anymore. I always thought that should have been a good holiday. Here's a holiday. Go next door. Find out who the fuck lives there. Dude, we would eliminate so many creepers just like that. So many of my friends have no idea what their neighbor does. You know? But we have that's another thing. Like, I'm excited about having some borders in this country because we don't even know who the fuck is already here. It's scary. It's scary living in a country where you don't know who's here. You know? That's bizarre. That's bad. That's crazy. That's like, imagine you wake up and there's some people in your house you don't know. Huh? Who are you? Huh? That's America, man. That's America sometimes. You know? And I know it's like you got to be, you know, the land of the open and, you know, the free and stuff like that. But I think sometimes we got to know who's here. We need a roll call. That's what we need. We need everybody's third grade teacher to show up with the pencil in their hair and do a roll call. Or do like a boat safety drill. You know they do on a cruise? They get everybody out in the beginning. You got your group where you meet up. You put on your life jacket. Do that in the street. Let's find out who our neighbors are. Find out who's here. Fucking creepy McGooberson down the street. Who is he? I don't know. Whatever, dude. It's obviously been a long weekend. Throw some dates. I got some new dates. I'm coming to Baltimore. Dude. Let me tell you the name of this club, bro. Just got it in. Here's the place, dude. It is called Magooby's Comedy Club. That's where I'll be. It's actually in Timonium, Maryland, February 9th through the 11th. So that's Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Magooby's Comedy Club in Timonium. I don't know where that is. It sounds like something I should get inoculated for. Timonium, Maryland. Let's see what it is. Ooh, there's a racetrack there. There's about 9,900 people live there. Ooh, they want to bring the dog in. They want to bring him in to Timonium. Yes, I'll be there. I'll be there out in Timonium. It looks like it is near. It's about, right outside of Baltimore, north side of Baltimore. Outside of that, I'll be at Virginia Beach Funny Bone coming up January 26th through 29th. And then I'll be at the Schaumburg Improv outside of Chicago February 2nd through 4th. And the Comedy Works in Denver, that's February 23rd through 26th. So I'm excited about that, man. What else happened, man, this past weekend? Just did some sets, man. Harlan Williams saying some nice things. That was cool. Just trying to be a decent man. That's what else is going on. You know, I'm trying to stay out of the politics. It's hard not to talk politics, man. Just so many people. I just don't know how they get people to see each other's perspectives. People have different perspectives. Like, people live in different worlds. Like, out here in California, a lot of these people out here, they live like it's just a different world. They can't even fathom the environment that I grew up in, or the environment that a lot of people grew up in. You know? People that are well off, they have no idea what life is like when they're not well off. And there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that people just see the world completely differently. Like, they can't see my perspective and I can't see their perspective. So sometimes it's just baffling how people feel like we live, you know, in this same universe. You know, like, people out on the West Coast are always like, you know, no more racism, no more, you know, it's like we don't need, and it's true, you don't need those types of things. You don't need racism. It's horrible. But then but they don't understand how people who are living in environments where there is racism, they don't know what that's like. You know, it's totally different when you're living in an environment where there is a lot of racism. It's just baffling, man. It's different. It's like we just need to swap places. I don't know how we do it. Maybe virtual reality. You know, I heard that there's going to be virtual reality. This is true. Let me see if I can find this article. Virtual reality, where you can experience different races. Let me see. I saw this a while back. I'm just looking it up on the Google here. Top virtual reality going by now. Race, no. The experience, it's, no. Ethnicities. This shit is baffling, dude. Race and virtual reality. Virtual body swapping. Shit, I don't know. But yeah, I heard there's a virtual reality where you're going to be able to see what it's like to be different ethnicities. So you can put on, like, Latino and walk down the street, I guess, in this virtual area, and you'll see what it's like. I mean, that's it. I just don't know if is that going to help people. Maybe that'll help. Maybe that will help. Maybe that's what we need. You know, maybe we need to show each other what it's like to have lived each other's lives. Maybe virtual reality can that do that? But is that going to change our minds, or is it just going to change what we see? You know, I don't know, man. But it's crazy sometimes out here in California. It's just like people don't see that the rest of that America is different, or they don't care. You know, like, I'm amazed at all these celebrities that just bash. You know, like, I mean, the poor white people are like the punching bag of America right now, and that's kind of hard for me because I grew up poor and white. You know. And I don't think poor white people are bad people. I don't think anybody are bad people. It's just, I don't know. Fuck it. Whatever. It's tough, man. It's tough out here. It's tough sometimes. Especially having like a southern accent. People think immediately I'm just, some yokel. It's just, I don't even know what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm going off. At least I'm not a Dallas fan. Whoo! God, that must have hurt, huh? But they got young players, you know. Ezekiel Elliott, that guy. Oh, getting him on my fantasy squad. Definitely. Next year. What else, man? Jimmy Snuka died. We went over that. Trying to see if there's anything else really exciting I was going to tell you guys about. The weekend was pretty chill, man. I went over to some friends. I went over to some friends who watched the Atlanta game. That shit was pretty dope. They had some kids that were obviously big Atlanta fans. Some pictures of Paris Jackson I just saw. Michael Jackson's daughter. Dude, she's an attractive young lady. I don't know how old she is. That's why I'm not going to say anything more, but she looks 18. She's an attractive young lady. That's got to be crazy. Michael Jackson was your dad. Can you even imagine? All the NDAs you had to sign growing up. Can you even imagine? That's got to be bizarre. But that's it, man. That's what's going on this past weekend. I don't really have a ton, so I'm not going to take up a lot of your time, but I'll check in again next weekend. We're going to get some video options. We're going to start doing some guests. I'm open to any constructive criticism. I don't know if this is a good idea to just get on here and share. I always second guess myself. I've always been that kind of person that, just second guesses themselves. I wish I wasn't sometimes. I wish I was more confident. And sometimes I am. It's getting better. I'm almost 6 months sober. Or haven't drank, haven't been drinking. So that's exciting for me, man. On the 17th. So that's pretty dope, dude. So that's one cool thing. And I've been enjoying that. I know that's a buzzkill to a lot of my fans who wanted to buy me a beer. But you can still buy me a beer. Just make it a ginger beer, bruh. You know what I'm saying? Let's do that, dude. But anyway, a breakdown from this weekend. Oh, I was thinking about some sounds that I make, dude. I was thinking about like when I get angry, this is the sound I make. Thinking about that one. That's the one I make a lot, dude. Like when I'm really upset. Fuck! I do that one. I'm trying to think of one that I do like when I'm in the car. Motherfucker. I do that one. I'll drop some. Sometimes mostly in the morning, like right when I get up, if I'm in the shower, I'm usually like kind of pissed off. I'll just belt out a series of just every racial slur that they ever made. I'll belt it out just to get them all out of my system. I do that in the morning. I'm gonna think about that. I'm gonna think about some sounds that I make. I'm gonna try to pay attention to some sounds that I make in the next week, and I'll bring them back for you guys next week. But that's it, man. That's what's been going on. If you have anything you want me to discuss on here or talk about, we got Adam Carolla coming up on Allegedly, on the Allegedly podcast that I do with Matthew Cole Weiss. You can check that out. That's going to be released tomorrow. That's Allegedly, and it's on iTunes. We got Adam Carolla. Margaret Cho is just our guest. That was a great episode. She talked about how when she was hanging out with John Travolta one time, and he ate an entire pie by himself. Could you even imagine sitting there watching beautiful old blue eyes Travolta frickin' smugging down a pie like Evander Holyfield? I used to watch you wrestle. Oh, it was good, man. The old days, huh? I miss them. I always long for the old days, man. What else? I'll try to give you a personal update. What's going on, man? Copped a little bit of oral recently, so that was good. I don't know if I got to read up on oral sex and see what the history of that is, and I'll try to do that for next week. Oral sex and maybe some different sounds that I make, not during oral sex, but just during life. Different life sounds. I'm making a chart for next week. Oral sex. But yeah, copped a little bit of oral, It's always good to keep your vibe going, get out there and, experience somebody else's face or mouth with part of your body. I think that's good for men and women. A lot of these women are just, offering oral these days too, they're just like, it was probably 2 months ago, this girl's like, you want to come around this building and just, chew on my frickin' little birth wallet. And I'm like, whoa, lady, that's pretty bizarre. It's quite an offer, just traipse around the corner of a building and frickin' snack on the end of somebody's birth wallet. I'm out, lady. All right, I think that maybe wraps it up, dude. I had some fans that sent in some music, some opening music. Maybe I'll try to use that next week. Some cool tune that they made. But that's it, man. You know, I'm just trying to stay positive. This week was a little tough. I got down in the doldrums, kind of. It's kind of hard when that happens, bro. I stay on my meds. You know, I keep my meds tight. I stay focused. You know, I get out of myself, spend time with friends. I call friends constantly, see how they're doing. This week, I'm excited this week. We got a couple of cool guests for the podcast. We got Aaron Carter coming in. That'll be interesting to see what his life's been like. He's like a young musician, dude. And that's it, man. I'm excited for the games next week. Atlanta and Green Bay. I'm going to go with Green Bay. I think it's going to be a Green Bay New England Super Bowl. And that'll be a rematch. I think they played years ago in New Orleans. I'm not sure. But at least I'm not a Dallas fan tonight. Sorry about that, Dallas fans. KC fans, I love you guys. You're out in the cold. And Dallas fans, you're going to have a great team for a while, so everything will be okay. At least nobody's a Saints fan. We got to get rid of Sean Payton, dude. Anybody thinks that guy, he thinks he's Bill Belichick, but he's not. He's not. He's had 5 defensive coordinators. Oh, they're all the problem? Huh, Sean? With your booty hole mouth. He got a mouth like a booty hole, like a sphincter. Look at his mouth next time. So just like a sphincter. Imagine somebody took, I bet his booty hole looks like a regular mouth. I bet that. And on that note, man, this past weekend. Let me know any constructive criticisms, man. I love it. If you love the podcast, comment on it on iTunes. Say something nice. And be good to yourselves, man. You know, if you're being hard on yourself, if you're trying too hard, take a break. You know, let some light into your life. You know, ask God for help. You know, ask your friends for help or help a friend. Quit thinking about yourself if you can. It'll make everything easier, man. It always does. I'm not trying to preach at you. I'm just trying to be here with you. Peace. That's what that's what I find. I would suck. You know, I'll suck a nap out of, I'll suck a comfortable nap out of, or I'll suck a quiet afternoon out of somebody's yak. You feel me? I will suck somebody's yak for, a couple hours of peace and quiet. That's what it's going to come to. That's what it's going to come to. You're going to be walking, through the Tenderloin district or one of these, seedy areas in a certain city, and somebody's going to be like, hey, come here, man. How about you, how about you let me suck your dick for a little peace and quiet? That's going to be the drug. Because it used to be so much more peaceful. And I think if you're, I'm 37, I'm an adult male. And if you are if you're 20, and this is going to sound, I just sound probably like an old guy. That's what I sound like. Oh, the old guy telling us things used to be so quiet, but it used to be so much more relaxing. I picked up a book yesterday. Have you tried to open a book? And look, you're like, what the fuck? This is the worst video ever. Every time I look at a book, I'm like, it is hard. It's just my ability to be patient with my ability to be patient has just is decimated. It's decimated. I have a tough time. But yeah, I picked up a book yesterday, like an old paperback, wasn't even shiny or fancy, and I'm just like, dang, this is pretty sad. And I like to read, I like to absorb. And here I am thinking that. So I just wonder, what does it look like here in the next 10 years? When it has to be video, or your brain, it's like, it's too slow. Because I also notice things that are too slow for me now. Like if I call someone's phone number and it doesn't go straight to voicemail, but it has that thing where it's like, to leave a voice message, press 1. To have the caller return your something or other, press 2. If it's not just, Hey, it's John, you meet your cell phone, call me back, beep. If it's not that, I get pissed. Because I'm impatient. I don't want to deal with that extra 7 seconds of bullshit that I already have heard a million times. And then I don't even want to leave the message. Then I don't even want to fucking talk to John anymore. Because I don't like the bullshit that he's putting between us. I don't like, suddenly I'm angry at John. Because he doesn't have the machinery or the software that I vibe with the most. And I just get, and it's me. I know it's me. I could go live in the woods or live in a tent or take more hikes or do other things that would, get me out of that realm, and take those, and get those, what are those things that stick to a boat? Scallops. And get those scallops off my body. Because I let those scallops start to build up by not being out in nature. By not swimming, by not stepping in a puddle or fucking, getting a couple pats of mud and putting them on your neck or putting them on your back. And just being a part of nature and slowing it down. I remember the first time I didn't really go camping. I got locked out of the house. And, me and my brother slept under the eave of the house, by the porch. And dude, there was so much bullshit down under there, and we ended up actually finding a plumbing problem that we had. My mother didn't know we had it, and it, almost really broke us as a family financially once we found that. But it was interesting just being outside for a little while. I remember as a kid and slowing it down. I even just remember that. I do remember a couple of moments of how quiet it was. It was also quiet. I found when I was young, it was quiet. I talked about this on last week's episode, that it was quiet when my family would get together when the power went out. And that was one time in my home that there was a lot of peace in the air when the power went out when I was a child, because you got together. You got together. Where are you? Suddenly you needed each other. There was a commonality. Because my family didn't have a strong family. There was no familial bond. There was none of that shit. It was just felt like a rescue center. And we used to fight, and we used to fight at the table. And the best thing you could do during dinner at my house was if you could make fun of somebody hard enough till they cried. And they had a mouthful of food. And if you've never seen somebody cry with a mouthful of food, I mean, it's messed up. Yes, I agree. Secondarily to it being messed up, it is hilarious. Because they can't swallow because they're crying. And they can't cry that good because their mouth is full of food. And so that was when at my house, that's when you got somebody. When you had them crying with that mouth, you had them, jawed up on a fucking couple grams of Salisbury steak. And they was jawed up on that and running some, half a mouth still full of hot potats, bruh. And then you hit them with a couple of jabs and they started crying. You hit them in the feelings. Because in my household, that was the only way that we showed attention to each other. It was the only time we even spoke to each other, I felt like, when we were kids. And it's unfortunate. I'm not saying that that's a good way to grow up. It wasn't fun. But it was, it was real. And then the time when we enjoyed each other's company, when we were at peace, when we found some solace, when we found some, I remember if the power would go out, I'd be, doing whatever I was doing. I was living in my own world, doing what I wanted to do for me. But then the power went out and I was scared. I didn't want to be alone. I needed more than just myself then. So we go, and Mom had 2 candles in there. And so we go in there, and that's when, there was a necessity there. It created necessity. And I think it created, with that darkness, even though, we're in our home, I think, even as a mother, I think there's just something innate, something that goes back to what's important about motherhood. and that it grips you in the neck, and you say when the power goes out, where are my children? Where are, these extensions of my body? Where's the rest of me? I'm assuming that's probably what a mother feels sometimes. And so we'd find our mom, and our mom wanted to find us. And then we would all be together, and those candles would be lit, and you couldn't go outside of the glow of those candles because it was, you don't know what was out there. And you wanted to keep tabs on each other, and your body, your nerves were alert. So like, if you were not touching, not being, sensual or being wild, but if you were just touching or tickling each other as children, you were feeling, it was so heightened. And your ears, my nerves would go to my ears, and I could hear. I felt like I could hear the whole world, because I would just be so I needed to hear if anything was coming, and not spraying out. I'm talking an animal or a Voldemort or a falcon or a bad falcon or something dangerous was coming, and I needed to be able to hear. And suddenly my ears just developed these long, capable arms that reached out into the distance and fucking brought in every sound that was around. And I loved that time. I loved it because our family was together at those moments, and we needed each other, and we wanted to be together, and we wanted each other to all be safe, and it was peaceful, and it was so quiet. And that's the quietest I remember it being, was when the power went out. Now, fast forward to now, the power doesn't even go out as much as it used to. Because now we have generators and backup generators, and we got, Big Larry or whatever, who works down at the power plant, who's supposed to make sure he presses this button if the rains come, or whatever. We have all these backups in order. And it's just kind of, I don't know. I miss that peace. Because for somebody like me, who it's hard for me to find peace anyway, to not have it be as readily available as it was due to, technology and due to our attention span. Another thing is just my attention span. Come on. A span, I would barely call it that. I notice if I'm reading, I'll read one paragraph. By the second paragraph, my mind goes off to something else, what did that girl say? Or, man, I haven't seen her in a long time. Or start thinking about sex. I will think directly about some dang beehole, some troubled beehole that I've seen on the internet. Or some set of tits that I've seen on the internet. Immediately, I'm reading a fucking chapter of Mark Twain, dude. And then it's just like, next thing you know, in my mind, I picture Mark Twain, fucking by a fence or something. And the next thing you know, my brain is gone. And I have to recalibrate. Boom, let me get back into this story. And it's just my attention span. It's just a different time. It's a different time. But I like this instrumental that came in here. This was Josh Porter. And he sent this in. And it was called Luchador's Longfellow. That is what the song is called. I'm going to let you catch one more little hit of that right here. Here we go. Hear them heavy tones right there, boy? Sound like somebody's trying to put the moves on a fucking ice cube right there. Like somebody's trying to just tickle the nipples of an ice cube. Ooh. So cold, man. And so hot at the same time. Happy Thursday to you guys. I want to tell you guys too, man. I'm going to tell you about them right now, and that's Gray Block Pizza. And they got them beautiful. They got all kind, the Frenchie. They got these beautiful pizza pies over there. The Frenchie, the Farmer's Delight, the Onion, the Q, the Caps. Got that portobello oyster, the shiitake mushroom with the Parmesan Fontina Romano. And they got all that at Gray Block Pizza. And their link is on the YouTube. And they're over there at 1811 Pico Boulevard on the way to the beach in Los Angeles. If you're headed to the beach, stop at Gray Block and get that header. Thank you guys for being with us. I want to thank everybody that subscribed on YouTube. Dude, we're up to 21,000 subscribers. And man, I cannot even tell you how... Well, to be honest, I feel a couple of things. I feel some pressure, and I know that that's just me. I just, I want, I just want to continue to show up, and help do some things and make this thing bigger and broader. I have some neat ideas that we're going to try and do some fundraising as a group, that I'm going to be contributing to and do some cool stuff. A lot of big ideas, and a lot of those are starting to be able to execute them. And so, but I'm grateful to you guys because this is kind of crazy. Like, I started doing this podcast and I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I still don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I have this horrible shirt on. If you can see on the YouTube, wow, this shirt is really questionable. And it looks, it looks like just like a damn, it looks like a dang semen cloud just busted right up over my house. And I, got batched out, to be honest with you. And that I know is going to be a grody thing for some people to think about, and I'm sorry. And I won't say something like that again. But here's the thing, though. By being a listener, by being a supporter, and there's been, I can't tell you how many nice emails that I've gotten, people just saying thanks and thank you. And here's the thing. By people listening and being a part of this, like, I hate to say this, it might sound a little bit, greedy or egotistical, but it made me come back to do it. Like, if it wasn't for you guys listening, I might have just, might not have gotten out of some of the ruts that I was in because I needed this thing. I needed to come here and have some people to talk to and to think about stuff with. And so I just, man, I really, I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. This has been a lot of fun. We're going to do a lot of neat things as a group. We're going to do a lot of things that are going to lift people's hearts and lift people's spirits. We're going to start doing some things for some single mothers out there. We're going to do some cool stuff this year. And I just want to thank you. I want to thank everybody on Patreon that's been supportive and everybody that's been listening and subscribing. And, yeah, it's just cool. All my life I just, I think I want, I want to do something good. And helpful, and I feel like, dang, sorry, dude, I'm getting a little caught up, but I feel like, this podcast is maybe a way that I can, help do that sometimes. So I'm not saying that I do that. I'm not saying that I think I help. I'm not saying any of that. I just feel like there's moments that we have on here, or that I'll read something that somebody sent, or a comment or something that makes me not think about myself for a little bit. And for me, that's a blessing, because I think I grew up just thinking about myself a lot because I had to take care of myself. And now I don't have to, but I still have to shed some of those old ways, and I still have to get my, I don't think I'm egomaniacal, but I do think sometimes I'm self-centered. But now, man, I'm just trying to get these reins off my shoulders and get that drip out into the world. But we're going to do some cool stuff, and I appreciate you guys' support. What else, man? The Saints game. We're going to talk about a couple things. The Saints game. A lot of you guys were on here with me on Monday's episode when the Saints game hit, and I fell apart. My brother called, and he called because we usually talk after the game, and I guess I hadn't reached out to him, and he called and checked in, and we talked about it on air. And they lost, man. And they lost. And it was, the next day I literally felt like they won, but they didn't advance, if that makes any sense. And I just felt bad for some of those young guys. And I felt like this. There's a last play, and I think it'll always be one of the stranger plays in NFL football, where Mr. Williams, he's going for the tackle. And Mr. Diggs, he plays on the Minnesota Vikings. He has the ball. And Mr. Williams tries to hit that man, and he misses him completely. But he shouldn't have. And for me, I think this is why it happened. I think it happened because they called 2 really bad penalties on Mr. Williams early in the game. And Mr. Williams, this is his first year in the NFL. And this is his biggest game of his career. If you look back, there couldn't have been a bigger game for this, gentleman. And I think he's an African-American gentleman. He might be, or full black, I don't know, mixed guy, I'm not sure. But he plays defensive back, and I believe he's number 43. And he's had a great year. I almost want to say I don't know if he went to the Pro Bowl, but he's had a great year. And I think that they make those bad calls in the NFL early because they don't let these guys play football anymore. And then by the end of the game, he was nervous. You have these guys nervous to play football. And that's weird because it's football. And I just think sometimes it's like these guys know they're playing football. Yes, we want to make the game safer for them, but we don't want to make them so nervous to make a play that there aren't any more great plays made. Because the way it should have broke down was that he should have made that tackle and that game should have ended. But he's afraid to touch the guy now because he's already had 2 not good pass interference calls made against him. So you got a scared rookie out there. Just because of the way the play calling, he's worked his whole career to get up to this point. And now just because of the way that the penalties are being called, he's nervous. I just don't think it creates the best product. Now, I think they should make the helmets out of rubber. Make the field out of something a little more cavalier. Maybe denim. Something where these men aren't, they don't have to kill each other, but they can still hit each other. Because a lot of these men are dogs. A lot of these men are Rottweiler, Bichon, jacked up Russell Terrier, aficionado, fucking pit bulls. And they want to attack. So then you have them all, you got this awkward stuff going on there. I feel like there's a lot more anger going on at the end of the play when they're yelling at each other than there is on the field, than there is during the actual plays these days. But yet maybe the NFL is more popular than ever. I don't know. I don't know what the numbers are. But for me, at halftime of that game, I felt like I was watching a really advanced flag football. And maybe that's just what the world is becoming. Maybe we're becoming flag football. It's hard to be a man. It's hard to be a man. But I'll say this as well, that the thing that consoled me and made me feel better, and I was talking about this on Facebook Live last night, was that watching the videos of the Minnesota Vikings fans. Watching the videos of them feel joy and feel excitement and just the joy. Just them, just elated. Just them to know that a miracle can happen in a second, that something could change. And that made me feel picked up. Because it took me out of me thinking about, my team lost. And still, my team had still lost, but now another team had won. Another group of people were feeling something good. So it made the illness that I was afflicted by, the downs, and I'm not talking Down syndrome, I'm talking about feeling downs in the dumps, down in the dumps. It lifted that a little bit because if you added those 2 sums up and divided them by 2, it sets me a little closer to the middle than it does if I'm just down and you divide that by 2. So that's what did it for me. But man, what a season by the Saints. I think Sean Payton got the luckiest draft ever. I think they've had I think his ego's gotten out of control. I don't think he's been the same coach since they won the previous Super Bowl when he got divorced. To me, and this is all speculation, this is all just me being a fan. I love the Saints. But to me, I feel like players respond differently over the years to a married man, a man who's out there and is toeing the line each day and going to work and leading by example. And then he's hobnobbing with these ladies and he's in the club and he's doing the Dougie and all this shit over the years, and I think that changed some of the vibe over there. But it was tough to see. I wanted to see Drew Brees versus Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. I will actually be in Jacksonville this weekend, popping off down there in Jacksonville. And if you ever want to find a dead body, I suggest you go to Jacksonville, because it seems like the kind of area where people are straight up H&Cs, you know what I'm saying? Hiding carcasses. And that's a fact, Jack. You know, I used to drive along the interstate when I was young. I used to peek out the window and look for bodies in the distance. And a lot of you guys know I found 2 fingers in the woods when I was young and turned them over to the police. And the man put them in a Ziploc bag and threw them in the trunk of his car and took off. So I haven't found a whole body, but I'll be damned if I haven't found about at least probably maybe 1% of a body. All right, let's get into a little bit more stuff that's going on here. It's hard to be a man these days. It's hard. And I think the toughness for me, I mean, especially in Los Angeles, good luck meeting a woman. The best you can hope for these days in Los Angeles is you go out to the club. You don't get in a lawsuit. That's the big thing. You know, like they should open up a club where it's called NDA, non-disclosure agreement. Everybody signs one before they go in, just to know that, you know, if you wink at a woman, she's not going to say you took a swing at her with your eyelashes, because it's getting wild. I won't even masturbate locally. I refuse to masturbate locally. I'll drive out to Riverside, or I'll drive out there near Commerce Casino and, you know, spray out around back of there, around that area, in a, you know, not at a park, in a safer area. But I'm not jerking locally. You're crazy. You are crazy. I'm afraid I'm thinking about getting a bunch of garlic and hanging it up. Because I'm afraid that some woman out there is going to buy a Ouija board and accuse me of trying to, you know, diddle up in her seance zones. So it's tough. It's tough. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of men out there who are, you know, getting involved in homosexuality because they're just tired of it. They're like, look, dude, let's go back to your place. You know, let's both be fucking just blindfold each other and just act like, you know, pretend, you know, maybe play sounds of women in the background or something. I don't know. But it's tough. And you had the big case with Aziz Ansari. We talked about it the other day a little bit. And I get nervous to talk about some of this stuff, and I know I shouldn't. But I'll say this. I mean, I could see, when I read this story, I could see this being Aziz-type behavior to me. I mean, you know, Aziz is one of the only comedians I've ever met where when I shook his hand, he didn't look at me. You know, he just is like, he seemed to me like he has this vibe about him that he's better than other people, which is fine. Maybe he is in some realms. But, you know, I haven't really, I've you know, the only other comedian that didn't look at me when he shook my hand was Chappelle. And that's fine. I mean, Chappelle is, you know, he's really good at what he's a legend. You know, his new special, man, I haven't seen the second hour, but that first hour, it might have saved comedy by him talking about things that, just to make words okay to say. But yeah, you had this instance. It was a crazy instance. And then years later, you know, the girl brings it up, and it's tough, you know, and I think some women are probably confused about the Me Too. Do I say something? Was it really something? You know, if a woman's only had one sexual experience and it was uncomfortable, but say she had 5 more over the next 2 years, or she's going to have 5 more, and then she'll realize that it wasn't uncomfortable, that it was just her scope of knowing what you know, getting involved with someone was like sexually was limited. But she makes that claim now, you know, and puts someone's name out there, because that's the thing. It's just so damaging. And maybe it was a bad instance that a girl had, you know, but it's just, I think I don't know how you get this right. Because also there's some things out there, because you don't want. It seemed like it was handled, when I read back on this Aziz Ansari situation, it seems like it was handled between the two of them. She texted him the next day and let him know that she felt like she was not appreciated. She felt like he didn't recognize proper signs. And I wouldn't be surprised. It sounds like he didn't. But it also sounds like there were other signs where if you're a man that's in the heat of that beat, that you are not going to be probably as keen to notice them. When a man gets overcome with sensuality, it's almost like somebody takes out a fucking little mallet and starts just beating a mallet at the base of their spine. And then that rattle goes up their back. And that's a sex rattle. And they start wanting to do sex and experience sex and titties and everything. Or even if it overcomes, it's a limbic thing. That arousal, you look in the jungle when a lion see a girl lion in the distance, or a cheetah, or a lynx that's wearing some tight, they have some tight fur on her legs, he perks up. And at that point, when he's perked up, it's tough to notice things. It's tough probably to notice smaller signs. Because the biological foot of the universe that tells you, that pushes you towards procreation and doing skeet out of your body, is already being accelerated. So it's like, it's tough to, how do we manage that when it is beyond, it's not our choice sometimes. Now, at the point, of course, I'm not saying if a girl or a guy, if you're doing male on male sex, if a man is being, saying he don't want it, he doesn't want it, he's not interested, no, then you need to know that shit. And part of it, a lot of this comes back to people taking responsibility for themselves. No means no. That's easy. That's why it is no. They gave an opposite to no, and it's yes. That's the things. But ladies also, to be so empowered and so in control of yourself, but then to show up and, it sounded from this Aziz story, to stay in an environment where it wasn't the most suited for comfort. I don't know. It just creates, there's a lot of gray area in all this, is what I'm saying. And I feel like a lot of this I've always said goes back to what's going on in these classrooms when people are children and when children are children, those same people. That's what I'm talking about. Because the shit we're teaching each other, the shit we're teaching our kids, I don't give a fuck about most of it. These days, I don't care if my kid can, do times tables past 9. I do care if my kid knows how to share his feelings with someone else. And now I'm not saying share what he thinks, because everybody's doing that shit. Everybody's woke and all this bullshit. And a lot of that is bullshit to me. You want to get really woke? Try and understand what somebody else is going through. I'm just so sick of fucking a hashtag does nothing. It does nothing. There might be some awareness, but what it really does for, if you want to help something, go help it. Donate. I'm just so, it's like, I don't know. I don't even know what the fuck I'm talking about, dude. But it's hard. It's tough out there for men. And I can't believe that these aren't the things that we're starting to teach each other, teach children in an education system. Half the people ain't even fucking paying attention in school anyway. So let's get that goo-goo. Let's get into people's juju, you know? Crack open that sternum. Get them aortas thumping. Because when a man gets out there, he needs to know how to be a man. And, you know, with women, there's so much empowerment, so much after-the-fact empowerment. Let's get the empowerment early. Let's get the empowerment. Let's get the Me Too in second grade. And start teaching kids what it's like and what kind of the vibe is like in certain instances. You know, we have such a weird thing about sex here in America. We have such a weird thing about sex. And maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And you know what? That's highly, highly plausible. We had some calls that came in though, man. I'm gonna go through a couple of those a little bit right now. Some neat thoughts, and thank you for hitting the hotline. And that number is 985-664-9503. Here we go.
Hey Theo, this is Kevin from Visalia, California. Just listening to the podcast, I got to the part where you said you paused it before the Saints lost. I'm a Saints fan too, man. So sad. We'll get him again next year. Take it easy.
And you know what? I can't even remember if I already played that call or not. So, but yeah, will we get him next year? It's all there is to say. Because only one team wins it. You know, only one team wins it. And there's still some good teams in it. There's some great fan bases. You know, Philadelphia, great fan base. Minnesota, great fan base. You know, they're going to be out there. It's going to create some good new rivalries. That's exciting. Jacksonville's in there. Dude. Anything is good for Jacksonville. And I'll be there this weekend, actually, at the Comedy Club. So I just want to let you guys know that I'll be in Jacksonville at the Comedy Club this weekend. I will also be, I'll be coming up in Tacoma in March. You can go look at that. It's on the calendar now. And the April dates will be on the calendar this week. A lot of dates popping up on there. Okay, here we go with another call that came in. This was Aubrey. Let's check it.
Hey Theo, this is Aubrey from Pittsburgh. We've had some fun little Instagram exchanges sometimes, you know, nothing dirty or anything. I'm a dog walker. I listen to you while I'm...
Oh yeah, Aubrey out there with them bitches, walking dogs. And this is a good line, and this isn't my line. A friend of mine told me this one time. If you see a lady walking a dog, and the dog is a male dog, then you say to the lady, you say, hey, that's a pretty girl you got there. And she says, it's a male. And you say, oh, I was talking to the dog. And then that lets her know that you trying to catch that little dirt. You trying to catch her little dirty frisbee in your mouth. You know what I'm saying? Her. What the fuck am I even talking about? All right, let's go. Here we go.
Walking the old puppies. I listened to today's podcast, a little bit surprised at the exchange with you and Zoe.
And she's talking about Zoe Monroe. And Zoe Monroe, even though she's named after obviously a Civil War general, who also probably stole the name from a Native American, M-U-N-R-O. But Zoe Monroe is a butt actress. She does, all types of butt activities and, tit circus and all of that. Sex artist. Pornography. And that she called in the last week's episode. Onward.
Talking about the dark arts all the time and how much you kind of are sort of against masturbation with the porn and everything, and then to have that, I mean, kind of weird. Hey.
Okay, so you're saying it's kind of weird that we had her on, and then also, but those are things I'm against. I agree, and we needed that. We needed to talk to a pornographer to know if it's okay to pleasure oneself to dead artists. And I've still come to the conclusion I don't think it's cool. And I've also thought that we might get a seancer on here. Someone who does seancers and get in touch with one of the deceased porn artists and see if we can ask them personally and get their word. So if you guys think that's a cool idea or it's a weird idea, whatever, put it in that YouTube into the comments down there, and we'll see kind of what the vibe is on that. Not to continue to discuss porn, but it's tough. And I've landed on the fact that I don't think it's okay to jerk off to the deceased. And I don't think that's crazy. If you're driving down the road and you're jerking off, okay? This is just a hypothesis. You're driving down the road and you are just touching your little fucking long green bean, And that could be your wiener, or could be some ladies got that freaking, they got that tender lima down there, But you're touching that green bean and you see a dead body and it's sexy. It's wearing a bathing suit. You're going to jerk off? No. So that's really where, some of my thoughts come from. But I see what you're saying. We have her we talk to her, and, it's like, well, if we're against the dark arts and we're trying to stay out of our crotch and stay out of, vibing into our dirty pleasures, then why are we discussing things with her? Well, we needed her as a reference. And secondarily, I would not want my sister doing pornography. It would make me feel a certain way. And also wanted to have Zoe just, I guess I just wanted to, also hear her and not just have to talk about sex and just be thinking about, a little bit more of a human take on what's going on sexually. And she said some things that were interesting to me is that what she thinks her job is selling fantasies. And I'd never had it put to me like that before. But that's a lot of what it made it suddenly so obvious to me. Because I would see things in pornography and then hope to catch them out here in the real life. But most of that's fantasy. Most of that's not realistic. No chick is bringing by a pizza and wants to fuck and not even have to get paid for the pizza. That's, most chicks aren't hitchhiking and going to fuck you in your car after they get in. It is fantasy. And I never even realized that. To me, I was just so intent when I would cut it on to seeing the bodies and seeing the angles and the just crotches just attacking each other. Just like a damn, just like the battle of, Bulger. And I was so used to seeing that I wasn't focused on what else was going on, or I couldn't see what else was going on. So it was interesting to hear her take on it. But that's why we needed to have a reference, and so we asked her. Because she still, even though it is tempting to have her around, I didn't go jerk off. I texted with her and said, thank you, and that was it. But I'm sure there's a lot of dudes out there who listen to the podcast who checked in, and next thing you know, they're out there firing, that body sauce out at a whole new internet, staring at that dirty balloon knot and getting a peep at that thing, at that dark wink. And it's out there. And maybe I shouldn't have. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Aubrey. And maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have thought more about that. But I wanted to try and, in hindsight, I was seeing maybe this just kind of humanizes what's going on here a little bit more. Okay, I want to discuss a little bit about ZipRecruiter. Say you need somebody to do a job, okay? Say somebody hires you to juggle. You can't juggle, right? But the circus is tomorrow. So what are you going to do? You're going to look for a juggler. Well, now with ZipRecruiter, you can post your job to over 100 of the web's leading job boards with just one click. It's no more, printing off, juggler needed, and posting those around, and having to cover up missing dog posters just because you need that, that handy ball handler for tomorrow. No, not anymore. ZipRecruiter actively looks for the most qualified candidate and invites them to apply. And that can be anybody from a juggler to a CEO. Whatever your business needs, ZipRecruiter can help. No wonder 80% of employers who post on ZipRecruiter.com get a quality candidate through the site in just one day. And you can find out right now why ZipRecruiter has been used by businesses of all sizes and industries for free. Just go to ZipRecruiter.com/TPW. That's right. Go to ZipRecruiter.com/TPW and try it out for free. It's the smartest way to hire. Get that juggler. Yep, that's ZipRecruiter.com/TPW. Again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/TPW. There's speculation out there that President Donald Trump, paid off a hooker that he allegedly slept with at some point in his life. I don't know if the news stories are true or if they're false. But here's what I don't understand sometimes about the news. Who fucking doesn't think that this occurred? Like, sometimes the news keeps saying shit to me that I'm like, no shit. You think I think he only had sex with one prostitute in his life? No. He's Donald fucking Trump. He's just like all these other, I mean, he's just like fucking, I know dudes who have $30 and they've had sex with a hooker. I bet if you looked it up these days, I bet 30% of men in America have had sex with prostitutes. Now I'm not justifying what happened, but certainly if I see Donald Trump, yeah. That's the thing. It's like, people think that this is news. It's not news to who? Like, who with a real mind in their head looks at Donald Trump and thinks like, he's never had a prostitute. Or he's never paid a woman for a crazy party. Like, I just don't understand sometimes. But I do notice that I look on, if you look on news sites, every politician is now being called a piece of shit. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what party. Doesn't matter what affiliation. All of them. Because what I start to notice is that Hollywood is more powerful these days than politics. Hollywood is our political, it's our politics. The presidents are these people that are running these huge businesses. Those figureheads are obviously have been made by the media to seem more important or better or wiser. And that's where we are now. And you can start to see how, because the media, like these news sites, that's Hollywood. Like, what's happening is the news. What's happening is reality. But the way that it's presented to us by the media, and the media itself that's Hollywood. That's the media. So, and I'm not like becoming some conspiracy theorist. I'm not a dude. I want to check myself before I let something wreck me. And I just started to notice, it's like, man, every story is about and I've never thought politicians were the cat's meow. Like, who believes that anymore? I don't know if you can find a hero, because all these heroes that are always, sold to us, they're not real. They all fail. Because we are mortal. We can try to be heroes, but I don't know if we can. I don't know if we can be to a level that triumphs the value that is out there to pull heroes down. Because there's value in building them up, and there's value in building them down and breaking them down. I mean, in all these, the media, all these websites and the clicks, it's a formula now. Build them up, find something that breaks them down. Then we got the comeback. It's like, it's just, there's a lot out there. It's formulaic now. But I start to see that, the news just beats every politician now. Everyone. And I think it's because that Hollywood, that's the politics these days. They have more power. They have more power than these overall. They're the ones running the show because they are controlling the cameras. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that there's bad stuff out there, that everything's bad. But I'm just saying, to me, you have to have some awareness about that. And I'm happy to be wrong on that too, dude. I could be a fucking weirdo. I really easily could. All right, cool. I want to get into a couple of calls that came in. We had a mother that called last week, and she's raising a son. She's having her second child, and she wanted advice on what to say to her son or how to behave to her son to make him be a better man. But right before we get to that, we had this call that came in. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. I was diving into the dark arts a little bit.
And we've all been there, brother, and you're not a bad guy for doing that. I mean, hell, I practically served them up to you last episode by introducing you to, to a new receptacle for dark arts. And it's tough out there for all men right now. I won't even jerk off on land usually. I'll go out to a pier, and I'll jerk off a pier. At least that way maybe I catch international water laws or something. But who knows? There's a lady 700 miles away with strong binoculars, and next thing you know, I'm in court. For pleasure of myself out into the ocean. But anyway, onward.
Around Christmas time, when your exes come back into town, or you come back into town and start hitting each other up, got a question about when does that stop? Because I'm young, 21. When does that go away that you and your exes stop trying to link up every single holiday?
21, man. I bet you got nice skin on you. And I'm not saying that trying to be wild with you, but I am saying that just to, because at my age, you like seeing nice skin. It's on anything it's on, it's nice. You see some nice skin on a 21-year-old boy, and you're like, oh, he got some nice skin. And I recognize it where I recognize it. But hopefully your question or your thing you're talking about is people coming home from the holidays and hooking up with their exes or, getting in touch and booty call. And look, man, ride that donkey. Okay, water that pony. Okay, hay, feed hay to that aardvark. H up that vark because you want to keep this animal alive. Because some of the best times I ever had was coming back from college, and being at home in the summertime and catching you a little bit of local trim, Maybe a girl you knew and now she's graduating and suddenly she got, breasts and she's 18 and you're 19 or 20. And next thing you know, y'all out there just, fucking behind an optometry center somewhere off the interstate. And you're enjoying each other's company. And man, it was fun. And next thing you know, somebody's mom might get divorced and you might be that man she picks up at the workout fitness center. Or she's buying a bag of bread and next thing you know, you needing them titties, And that kind of stuff can happen. And it's during that time in your life when it happens a lot, I notice, when you come back for the summer. Because, people's friends or things have changed and people are changing. They're not sure what's going on and the dust is in the air. And you got to get out there and, you got to ruffle some dust and that's a good time to do it. That's what I found. So hopefully it doesn't end for you for a while. And that's a good time to throw some lines out in the water because when people haven't seen, high school can really, people put us in these boxes. People put us in these spaces. We put each other in these spaces. We only see each other a certain way. And then after someone's gone away to college and they've come back and you start to see them a little differently or they'll see you a little differently. And there's an opportunity for some romance because you haven't seen each other. You haven't been a part of each other's lives, so you wonder what they have and they wonder what you have. Even if it's just a story or a moment or an experience. There's natural planks there, where you can walk out on your plank and show them a little bit of your wood and they can walk out on your plank and, show them a little bit of their wood, And you can say, oh, look at this. This is what I've been doing. And they're like, oh, this is what I've been doing. And maybe you just bridge up. And next thing you know, you're making love to some lady out behind a damn fucking Xerox copy center. And you're like, I don't have any protection. And she's like, oh, it doesn't even matter. I had my ovaries taken out. I was in an accident. I had my ovaries taken out. So, make it do what it do. And that happened to me one time back there behind I guess it was kind of like strip mall, but also had some, like a little bit of a recycling center. But that's a great question, man. And I would say ride it as long as you can. Get that summer hit. Because I'll tell you this, sober sex is for children. When you were older, man, it's diluted, and there's, you'll be fucking and you can't even get one of your socks off, and somebody's wearing a hat. And there's all kinds of, somebody don't have cologne, or somebody's got had a smoking issue and have a trach pipe or hole, and you can hear the wind whistling in their trach hole. But when you're young, you can have that, so you need drugs and you need alcohol, a little bit of hit to get you through some of that as an adult. But as a kid, man, y'all fresh, y'all young, y'all are rabbits, dude. You could do backflips and you could fucking do whatever you want. You can cultivate that crop. As a kid, you can really get out there and touch each other's ass and people can feel it. So I implore you, if you are young, get out there and do sex. Make it do what it do. Because when you get up here into these middle ages, it's a damn fiasco out here. Somebody got too much cologne on their neck, and next thing you know, you get it in your eye, or perfumes. Woman's cologne for woman. So if you're young and sober, you get out there and do some sex, man. Legal sex. All right, let's take another couple of... We had some callers that hit us up, and this was in response to the young lady that called in last week, mother of two, and she called in and asked for suggestions from some of our listeners as to what are some things I want to instill in my son? And, and I was grateful at that moment because it made me think about that. And then my brother called in, and he and I were able to discuss it a little bit. Just about, some things we would have liked to have had as children. Emotionally, I think, is where some of this stuff landed for us. But here are some other calls that came in, and I want to get to some of those. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Carl from Auburn, California.
Dirty Carl, you out there, huh? Dirty Carl out there, onward.
And I'm calling about the question regarding what mothers can do to kind of set an example. The thing that's most important that spans the evolution of the family household through time is, the mother can set an example for that child to show them what a real woman is and how a real woman acts. That way, when that young man grows to be an adult and he goes and searches for his woman, he has a nice framework of what a real woman's like.
And that's a great point, Carl. I appreciate that. That's Hot Carl out of there. And Hot Carl is a nickname for, actually feces, I think, or it used to be anyway, and I hope it's not anymore, Carl, because I didn't, and I'm sorry, I shouldn't even have brought that up. But it used to be when I was younger, and I think that's gone out of time, so I probably shouldn't have, re-brought that up. But I don't think about you that way. Yeah, so that's one thing you can, so as a mother you can show by example, be an example for, I think just having that connection, because then your child at the very least is going to want to have a connection with the woman he seeks. I'm sure it's got to be scary, especially these days, because I think the parents should feel a responsibility for the value of somebody they put in the world. Because I have a feeling that there's going to start to be an evolution into like merit-based living. Because one of the big problems we have these days are people that just don't want to be better. They don't want to be contributing members of society for just whatever reasons. And I think that there's going to hopefully be some correction in that world where there'll be some merit-based society where who you are as a person somehow becomes quantifiable and that there's value there. I could easily see that. I feel like we're on the cusp of a huge evolution, I think, emotionally. And that's pretty exciting, bro. We out in them fucking emotional streets. Thanks for that call, Carl. Onward. Okay, let's listen to this call right here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo, this is Brandon calling from San Diego.
What's up, Brandon? From San Diego, boy. That's down there in the Dub B, boy, that whale's butthole.
I'm calling about the mom who was concerned about how to raise her son and this is relevant to me, and I just wanted to put this out there.
Okay, thanks for calling. More?
My 2 cents. You know, as a mother, I think that's really important for them to be there emotionally for their kids, especially their sons, because sometimes they don't get that from the father's side.
That's true, especially if they don't have if there's a father not in the household, then, you know, that's a lot of pressure on the mother because she's playing 2 roles now. And if your mother doesn't have schizophrenia or she's not, you know, probably a transvestite or something, that can be probably even more tough. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm saying that could be, it's probably easier for some of those people. More?
The mother should be empathetic and kind of in there for their son in emotional regard, because if they're not, you know, there's a time when my mom was kind of disconnected from that for me, and I think later on in life I seek that out, you know, in girlfriends and relationships and stuff. Like,
Yep, and I'm gonna stop you right there, and I appreciate your call, Brandon, but I'm gonna say that too. I mean, I was in a relationship when I was young, and I remember it was like, I guess, one of the first times I was really in love. You know, and that young love is fucking powerful. Dude, when you're in love and you're young, you could start a truck with your fucking tongue. I mean, you could power a damn building with your just with the salt on your breath. Because there's nothing, I mean, you are so hopped up on hormones. You know, you could spit into a cat's mouth and knock it up. And I remember, yeah, you know, I had issues from growing up with my mother, and then I met a girl and we fell in love, and I remember when she broke up with me, I remember, dude, all my shit gets always freaking oddly emo, but I remember thinking that I'd lost my mother. You know, and that's when I realized, yeah, I got some stuff there. You know, I got some issues there where, you know, I'm looking for connections with women that are supposed to be filled when I was younger. And I think a lot of these things go back to the fact that, you know, nobody's taking care of children. Nobody's at home with them. There's not a family anymore. You know, that's all and that's one of the things that I don't like sometimes, or that one of the things that I question about some goals of feminism. A lot of times it's used as a marketing tool just to get women, you know, to sell them shit, just like everything else. You know, it's all like, yeah, you buy this book, you know, next thing you know, you have a woman who wanted to have a family. Next thing you know, she's 42 years old. She has no kids. She started a small business somewhere off the interstate, and she's fucking furious and miserable at her life because she was led astray by by some of the darker sides of some of the feminist evolution. And I'm not saying that for everything, but I'm saying that is a reality, and that's going to be a reality that for some, and that's going to be a reality that's going to be out there. Let's hear some more. Here we go.
What's up, Theo? My name's Eric Giepert. I'm calling from Virginia.
Thank you for calling from Virginia, sir. Onward.
I'm originally from Louisiana.
Oh, you from that dirt, huh? From that boot. And we appreciate your service here vocally. Onward.
I'm calling about the girl with the question about her son. Biggest and most important things that you can instill at a child. Mm-hmm. I think it makes you better at so many things. You know, you're a better lover for the ladies. You're a better fighter when you need to be. I just think it makes you a better person overall. You build character.
I wonder if something made me passionate when I was young. Man, I'm stumped. I got nothing for that, man. But I appreciate that thought. Passion, ladies. Put that passion in your boy. And nothing illegal. You know what I'm saying? Stay out of that family sexual zone. Nothing sensual with the family. You know what I'm saying? I've always known that. My number one rule, if you think it's incestual, remember this. If you rearrange the letters of sister, it spells resist. And you could take that to the bank. Here we go.
Theo Vaughn. Man, this is Stephen up in Lexington, Kentucky.
Stephen up in Lexington. Stephen. Let's go.
Fellow Southern man. Calling in response to the lady that wanted to know about how to raise a young man into a real, and I got one comment, and I think you'll understand it being from the South.
Okay, let's get to that, Stephen, and thank you for the call.
The best thing a mom can do is love unconditionally, but most importantly, be her son's number one confidant in the world and a very good friend. And the reason I say that is I guarantee you meet a man who's close to his mother, and you meet a man who treats women well.
It's interesting. You know, I think this is all new territory for me, and how, seeing how people treat, noticing how people treat their mothers and stuff. I was so unaware of some of the value of that connection. I didn't really notice it going on around me. But that's interesting, yeah. I mean, there was times when I didn't treat my mother well. That's for sure. When I was probably embarrassed of her for things, or ashamed, or, and now I just want her to be happy. It's crazy. Like now it's like I almost have to let go of any issues that were there between us, whether she knew about them or not. And, I think the biggest issue I noticed growing in my own life was that my mother never seemed happy, and I wanted her to be happy. And I couldn't make her happy. And I didn't even notice it as a child. I just knew she wasn't happy. And so I felt like that was, for some reason, my fault. Because in a child's world, everything revolves around them. So if something's wrong, they think that it's their fault. It doesn't matter what it is. They have to have it that way to survive. The world just revolves around them. A fucking 4-year-old ain't thinking about his buddy. Or thinking about how his mom's day went. And you just, I remember as a child I remember as an adult now thinking back that all I wanted was my mother to be happy. And I realize now that since I couldn't make her happy when I was young, it made me feel like something was wrong with me. And I think that's a good point. If you can establish that confidence with your kids, and it might be tough probably. I bet that's tough, ladies, to, be able to break down those barriers and talk about things direct with your child, with a boy. And I wish you single mothers out there well with that sort of journey, because that's got to be tough. Because, I bet as a mother, you just want them to be, you're instinctually, you want them to be happy and fed and home and safe and warm. And then it's hard probably to have the time and the ability to go beyond that and discuss and get into things where, that probably almost feel like they're out of your role, especially if there's not another man to be around, if there's not a man to be around to do that. So I commend you moms out there doing that. All right, guys, I think that's actually a pretty good place to pull up the anchor right here. I got to go do a set tonight at the Comedy Store. Mr. Joe Rogan will be up there, and Christina Pazitsky, and Brian Callen, and a couple of other comedians. I want to be able to spend time with them. You can check out the dates on theovon.com/tour. And yeah, I think it's just, there's a lot of pressure on men right now. And then I bet that there's a lot of pressure on mothers to make better men. And then there's this outside and then there's this vibe out there that's saying women should even just be doing things on their own, that they don't even need men. And I don't know how those all fit together well. I don't know how you're supposed to learn to treat a woman if your mom isn't even at home or your father isn't even at home. When we've created a vibe where, both parents have to work, or an environment, a society. I don't know how, we expect people to know so much when we keep distancing ourselves connection-wise. Whether it be being on the phone or, being away for, being on these iPads or whatever. And we're all, how long till we're all in these addictive meetings for phone? What happened to you, Larry? It was that fucking update, that Microsoft Sea Lion, or the Mac OS X Sea Lion update, and I've never been the same. It's just like we've created this society where we don't have a family to help us be better, or to help us learn, or to learn any of these skills anymore, how to treat each other. Marriages are, it's all becoming extinct. It's all like this singular you do it. You don't need someone else. And then we wonder why people are growing up and don't know how to even be around other people, or don't know how to treat them, or why a guy, treats a woman like an animal, or why a woman feels like she got treated like an animal, or why a woman stays in an environment when a guy is mistreating her, or why a woman feels afraid to talk about what happened to her. You know, it's just, I just think I don't know if what we want innately and what we really want in our hearts is what we are, is the world that we're creating, or the world that we're letting be created by people that control it. I don't know. It's wild. It's wild, dude. It is wild. But I appreciate you guys being here with me, and happy Thursday to you guys. And I want to thank everyone. We got to 21,000 subscribers on YouTube. If we get up to 30,000, man, I'm going to do something special for you guys. I'll put out a comedy clip you haven't seen or do something special. So thank you guys so much. Hit the hotline if you have any questions or thoughts or suggestions. Any constructive criticisms as well for me. I'm always open to them. You know, that number is 985-664-9503. And if you have, you know, and I'm not trying to be right in anything we're talking about. I'm just trying to talk about it. And I appreciate so much the community that we're creating here online.